And welcome back. See, we told y'all these 2 episodes are going to be off the hook, as you can see. But welcome back to On That Note Podcast. I'm Brandon.
And I'm Calvin. Welcome back, everybody. So yeah, this is actually the 3rd part of our episode 3, I guess, if you will. We're still talking about the Waiting to Exhale soundtrack, and we're going to get into some of this music kind of specifically.
Yes.
So the reason why we split this up into 3 parts was because we couldn't really do the typical thing of just like picking a few that we like and all that other stuff. Like, just by consequence of the way that the album is set up, the fact that there are so many artists and so many different sounds, we just kind of have to talk about the whole thing.
You do.
So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go track by track, kind of talk about the artists, contributing artists, the kind of vibe and sound of the song, and then also how we feel like the song contributed to the story of Waiting to Exhale, and kind of whatever else that comes up. So yeah, are you ready to get into that?
I'm always ready.
And as you all might know, we still have our lovely guests with us. So if they just want to quickly do their introductions again, just introduce yourselves.
Hey, I'm Ashley. I'm Gabby. And I'm Ashley.
And you might not notice, different order, but names being said the same.
Precisely.
It's like what is it called? Like a palindrome.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I wonder why the word for palindrome isn't a palindrome, but it's fine.
Wow.
Valid point.
I was watching something recently, and the character, the dad, loved palindromes, but it was on This Is Us. The episode of Beth.
Yeah.
But that's another. But yes, welcome back.
Okay, so yeah, let's get right into it. Yeah. Let's go to track 1. So track 1 is
Exhale, shoot.
Right, shoot. By the one and only Miss Whitney Houston.
Then honestly, the co-producer.
Yeah, right, exactly.
The soundtrack.
So let's start with me. So I will be starting this off. That's what Whitney was saying.
And
you know that.
Yeah, exactly.
And ending it.
Right, yeah. So
but her voice was really the muse for the whole soundtrack. Like, as a character and as a voice, like, everyone had to at least sing similarly to her level. Like, there's no one on there that you can say can't sing. And they didn't even put Monica on there. They put Brandy.
Yeah.
They didn't know.
Yeah, but I mean, Brandy was going to get that anyway, because that's Whitney's
Brandy was
good.
Monica sings songs and Brandy sells records.
No. Here's the thing, too, though. Monica didn't release her debut album until 1995. Brandy's debut album had already been out and had been successful, so you're going to go with...
Just One of Those Days was a Waiting to Exhale song before Waiting to Exhale came out. Like, if there should have been anyone that had, like, a song that you could have, like...
because that song could have been on the soundtrack.
Oh, yeah, it was the soundtrack. Like, you could easily transfer Monica on Just One of Those Days. Valid point. I think every day was just one of those days for the whole movie.
Okay, so to bring it back, because y'all done got us thinking
all the way to Brandy, and we talking about...
Okay, she ain't till like track 7.
My bad.
So we're talking about Whitney, we're talking about Exhale, shoot.
Could you really package the first 2 songs together and talk about them as a pair?
Yeah.
Because it's both Whitney.
And they're honestly just 2 different parts of the same kind of vibe and song, essentially. Yeah. So, Why Does It Hurt So Bad? I mean, starting with Exhale, I think that's more so the side of Savannah that is focused on just like being all right.
Yeah,
keeping it pushing.
The not just the coping mechanism, but like the protection, like the
self-guarding and all that stuff. Whereas Why Does It Hurt So Bad is when the side that maybe Savannah's friends never got to see. Like that's her in her room, her inner dialogue.
But Exhale also summarizes the entire movie.
Right.
Exactly. It starts off with everyone falls in love, and then it goes on to like that love.
But we said in part 2, Savannah's character was the voice, and then it's funny because Whitney is now the voice of the soundtrack. So and kind of both ways she's able to do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that Why Does It Hurt So Bad is the foundation for the shooping. Like, I think it was an interesting choice to choose the shoop to be the first song. I hate to call it the shoop song. It really is shoop. But where it really technically could have been Why Does It Hurt So Bad, open up the the movie opened up with tragedy and one word and as far as like
for all of them.
And Shoop is like how you feel after you have come to terms with the tragedy that you have already dealt with.
But what if it's the opposite? Like, what if she didn't even have the words to describe her pain, right? Because what the fuck is a shoop? You know what I'm saying? Like,
it's a shoop.
It's a shoop. And so, but it means so much and it means so little. Like at the same time, so perhaps that shoop is like I don't even have the words to explain. And then everyone falls in love sometimes. Sometimes it's wrong. Sometimes it's right. Like this is building a situation for complexity.
Experience.
Yeah,
tragedy.
like and then she's like, all right, now that I've been honest with myself about this hurts actually pretty bad.
Yeah.
And Shoop bridges the gap for the older generation. I think that's always important to say that would probably be the term that maybe your grandmother or your elders would have used to say how they express whatever that non-definable term means.
Yeah. It would have been so interesting to start with why does it hurt? Like that would have been a very strong start.
It would have been
you know, like coming out the gate with exactly. That is a very vulnerable song.
But I think that might have been Terry McMillan's point. Like she didn't want to start off with like angry black woman. Like, but if you even think about the movie, how she wrote the book and like all the other kind of stuff, she wants to give a spectrum of black women before she goes into the black woman rage that we're all used to at that point. And I think that especially considering this track listing, it's like. Okay, we're shooping, but right under that is pain, and I think she's still being very responsible, and I think she kind of maybe guided Babyface in that.
But if you kind of look at it, pain is a theme throughout all the track listings. So it's like, let me give you a high, let me give you a deep low, and then let me give you utter so it sort of plays. It's an emotional roller coaster of a track list.
Sure.
It is.
I mean,
if you can survive the first 3 songs, you have survived the black woman diaspora. Like if you can come out of there without any tears from Exhale, Why Does It Hurt So Bad, Let It Flow. One of those songs is supposed to make you cry. You're not supposed to walk out of there unless you have no soul. If you can't let it flow, like if you ain't hurt so bad, and if you don't know how to shoot, at least have like that feeling of like I've arrived and getting over something.
Honestly, we can extend that to track 4.
Track
4 is when you are prostrate on the ground.
It hurts like hell is like when grandmama is like, I know, baby, like I know it hurts. Like
that's when you don't have the words. You just show up and be present for somebody.
But I will say the one track that is a skipper, and I know that I'm going to give my girl credit for writing.
Wait, are you?
Are you skipping ahead? Because I think we're transition.
So we've talked about the first track.
Not yet.
Because we gave Tony her flowers.
Right, exactly. So let's stop at Tony real quick.
Yeah.
So, Babyface coming off of, because they worked together on a soundtrack previous to this. They did Boomerang. Yeah. And they actually did a song together.
Right.
And she was the voice of Boomerang soundtrack.
Yeah, right, exactly. And so he knew to bring her back. Yeah.
It just makes sense.
And right, exactly. So right after you have kind of the voice of this, you have what has been his voice in the past, which is Tony, who he has a good relationship with. And so you have Let It Flow, which is, and as you all have said, very much another kind of thematic thing for each of the characters, just a thing of like release, which is hard to do sometimes.
Right. So when you think about it like this, right, and we're building, right, because you have Whitney, who is the first 2 tracks on the soundtrack. So to think that Tony, mind you, Tony hasn't even released a second album yet. So to think that Tony can follow up Whitney Houston is like, whoa, like that's a testament to her as a vocalist and a testament
to the industry at the time that they allowed vocalists to vocalize. Like it wasn't like, oh Tony, we're gonna X you out of the soundtrack. I'm not working with her because she's my competition. It was like, put her on there. So let's see who got the better song. Put her out there and let's see who everybody likes better. It was like, I respect you, girl. Come on the soundtrack and let me slay you if I can or if I can't.
Yes.
But that also implies that we're ranking based on importance to Babyface, right? So like to some degree, if we say a Tony follows up a Whitney, maybe it's the opposite. Maybe a Let It Flow is the sort of beginning of, you know what I mean? So maybe the way we're seeing this, maybe we need to see this as sort of a spherical or a linear process instead of a ranking system, because I just don't I don't know. I think some of these songs beget other songs, beget other songs, beget other songs.
sure.
But I think if any song lasts as a test of time, since we just talked about these three so far, Let It Flow is the most remarkable of those three. And what I
Let
mean
It
by
Flow.
because like first thing Monday morning, like as a person, that is a promise that everybody makes. Like tomorrow, I'm gonna be okay. I'm gonna put these tears away. I'm gonna make it. I have to be. I gotta let it flow. I gotta let it go. And it's really this very kind of cathartic conversation that you're having within your own self to say, like, she's talking to herself, like, if love brings you pain in your life, don't be afraid to let it go. So it's like it's a conversation that you should have with yourself as you're in the shower. There's like a water filling vibe to it, and this flowy letting go.
Exactly.
It feels more spiritual than the rest of the songs. Of course, I would love to say there's other records that were bigger hits, but the song that I think, if I had to pick one,
I mean, it's prophetic.
I may have to.
It's for real prophetic. The song is.
It gives you that I'm about to grow up one day, and it's gonna happen.
But I do always think that with musical projects, that sequencing is everything, right? And you know, clearly they didn't do this soundtrack in the order that songs appeared in the movie, right?
No.
So you had to be very intentional about what songs goes first, what goes next. So in that regard, I do think that yes, out of the first three songs we talked about, I'm more likely to go and put on Let It Flow right now than I mean, I can't put on Why Does It Hurt So Bad unless I just really just need to let it out. But like I think like in terms of you thinking about how you starting off an album and you're starting off this all-female affair and the second female voice that you hear is Toni Braxton, who's still a relative like newcomer. I think that's huge.
And she also has a unisex voice. Like there is no way that you can really just say that Toni Braxton is a female vocalist in the sense of Whitney Houston. She does have like this deep undertone that she has to be the one that talks about, like, I don't know, just a little bit more spiritual than just a scream of like, why does it hurt so bad?
But beyond it book ending with like Whitney Houston, we talk about how Whitney Houston is the first track and the second track, and she's on the last track. I think it's book ending with some of the strongest vocalists, because if you look 1 through 3, you got Whitney, you got Toni, and then Aretha comes through to follow. So like, if you ever
you can't
doubt
take
it,
Whitney and Aretha back to back though.
That's it. But if you ever needed something, you needed a smooth tenor,
white bread,
but a smooth tenor. But what it does is it creates an album that you can't put down, because in the first 3 tracks, if you get the trifecta of vocal perfection that is these 3 women, it's really hard for you to come for this album, even if it's some duds in there. And while I argue that there are some I could have done without, we'll talk about that later, I'm sure. But this album is undeniable, even in the first 3 minutes.
Absolutely.
So with It Hurts Like Hell, it's so funny because I was saying to Brandon earlier, this is kind of like my secret favorite. This is like, you know what I'm saying? This is really like the doors closed, the lights are off. You know, it's just exactly. And it's just so very it's so. It matures very well, and I think for us who, when we said we're kind of like children of the, you know, this used to be a song that I'll not skip fast forward because it was on a cassette tape. So I used to tell my mom, like, fast forward this song, I don't want to hear the song, because I couldn't understand and I couldn't relate to the song. But when life happens and you get to a point where you have just had so much life happen to you and you listen to a song like It Hurts Like Hell, you know?
For sure.
And I think maybe that's where it places Bernie, right? Because the song in the movie, it plays when she's with Wesley Snipes and they're having their conversation. And they're not just talking about cheating, they're talking about being very much in love with a woman, but she's dying. They're talking about, you know, being heavily connected to each other, but for whatever reason we can't be as close, or, you know, even if we are as close, that's not that right.
He was with a white woman.
Exactly, and all that stuff. It's just like there's so much that encompasses this, like, the hurt of it all, and it just hurts. You know, it hurts like hell. You know, and I think even the way that the song starts out, you know, love was always supposed to be something wonderful to me. To watch it grow inside yourself, to feel your heart beside itself.
This is really your favorite.
That's what I'm saying. That is Aretha Franklin's
career.
She's singing these songs in the 50s, the 60s, you know, when she's doing Dinah Washington covers. She's still saying, like, that little rosebud. I started letting that seed grow at a young age, just like you ladies will do. And I mean, it's just, it's like, I'm always going to give, extra credit to the Aretha.
Yeah,
And
exactly. Yeah.
But beyond that, I mean, I think
it's just so
beyond that, I think what we get in this album is a generation of women who have shared stories.
Yes.
We have this intergenerational trauma that we're not really talking about as it relates to trying to be partner, trying to be married, trying to be mothers, trying to be all of these things. And so this is an album that talks about the fact that these women could not be all these things.
Right.
And this is a reflection of it.
And this was my first feminism. I mean, this is when I realized that I had a relationship with my men and that what they went through, I went through. And there was a conversation, and I'm not saying at 10 years old, I was sitting there with my mother watching Wait and Exhale saying like, girl, I'm a feminist. I actually forget that womanist.
Yeah,
I am.
exactly.
But when you really think back on it, it's like, this is the first time that I realized like, oh, this is what I have to look forward to, and it ain't always going to be pretty. It's not the love song that I actually like. It's not the story that I want to always tell that's in my 90s R&B sex you up and down. These are scenarios that have nothing to do with sex, nothing to do with making your body feel good.
Yeah.
These are real life situations that you just had to, you like
I
them.
mean, it physically hurts to listen to the song.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. Like it physically hurts. Because the song hurts like hell. Like it's just all right. She's yelling, and this is like Aretha's ode to like.
But
I've been through some shit.
But I think that.
Roses
But I think that in that token, like it really does show like the dynamic of the song. Because again, I remember me being 11. At the time, my parents had divorced. 4 years later, and I would say like this entire album I really love because my grandfather let me play it constantly throughout the summer because he knew everything I had been through. But I feel like he also knew, okay, this album can talk to her in a way that I want to and other people may not be able to. So I'm just going to let her play it. I'm going to say like, hey, don't say hell, don't say ass. Like, and all the other kind of things. But I think like in Hurts Like Hell, like I just remember spinning on the chair and just like singing it like to no end. And that, it's like, okay, you 11. What hell have you been through?
Exactly.
Well.
But I think... But considering everything that was going on at the time, it just shows a testament of like how lyrics can just.
But I do think we get from an extreme low and then we go into a high.
Well, before you go there, because I want to make this transition. So 2 things. One about this song, I think that you need an Aretha Franklin on this soundtrack to legitimize it in a sense, right? Because you think about like black culture, there's always that level of deference to like elders,
or at least
like elders. You know what I'm saying?
There was a time when that was the case.
But there was some very clear cuts.
We'll sit in. Let's just sit in there for this. We were still in that time, but you know what I mean. But so you need Aretha Franklin, right? You need her to like add that. Under like it's not just these young women singing about 90s black women problems like no like this is shit, you know what I'm saying, to the point of like I've been singing this for decades. So you having Aretha Franklin, that automatically allows a level of buy-in to this soundtrack that older women may not have like when they heard about the movie. They might have might have felt a disconnect until like they're like, oh, Aretha on the soundtrack. We can talk about who else fits that category too, right? So you have that, but then you also have the oldest, like one of the older people or oldest people on the soundtrack juxtaposed right to the youngest person on the soundtrack. And then you get to make that move on into.
But if this was sold as a girl power soundtrack in 1995, which it wasn't, like I think that we are now saying what it meant to us, but they never sold it to you as some sorority girl swan song of like, this is for my ladies night. There's songs that they had that were anthems for women, and this really was a female anthem without ever actually saying like, this is for the ladies. Like, because back in the day, ladies in mind saying, this is for my ladies. Like this song, this is for the ladies, for the ladies, for the dudes. And so like I think that like nowadays, I don't know if this album would have been as successful if it was sold in the package of girl power in the way that we are talking about it nowadays. That I don't know.
You don't think back then women would have bought into it?
I don't know if my mother thought about herself with her friends as being girl
complete
power.
sense to me.
I just thought of her as those are her friends, those are her homegirls. We now sell things and talk about things in a kind of a package commercial way that we kill the reality of what's really going on. But I don't remember my mother saying squad goals or any of the stuff that we do.
But you think about those 2 phrases though, they were ushered in very like as a part of a very young movement. Girl power gets ushered in with the Spice Girls, right? Exactly. And that was a very like youthful like who past the age of like 12 was like a Spice Girls fan? No shade. But you know what I mean?
Or
And
past
even
the
when you
age of
think
melanin.
about-
Like,
right.
I mean,
And
who
so
really was
there's
repping
always
her?
a different grounded reality.
when you realize how
definitely.
your melanin showed up, like you didn't. Spice Girls, who?
But this is the
I
first
would
time
say
that you're seeing a lot of
Melanie
these
on, White Folks
artists
Fall in Love.
even show up that's like, I'm a woman and black.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Like, you know
So-
what I mean? Because Whitney wasn't necessarily having that conversation
Yeah.
through her music at first.
No,
Yeah.
not
So-
that Whitney didn't get a chance to have that conversation, but when Whitney got to remind you that she was from Newark, New Jersey,
Yeah.
she
When
made it
Nibby
very
got to
clear
come
when,
out.
yeah, when Whitney,
For sure. For
Whitney
sure.
Whitney,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, but yes, okay. So like you were saying, this transitions into the Brandy track, right?
Yes,
So-
sitting up in my room.
Exactly. So one of the youngest people on there, you know, but also vocalist in her own right, you know, and able to show that, you know, and it's a fun song, but she's also singing on the song, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this was a song that honestly was the most accessible for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
At
it
that
makes
age,
sense.
I was like 8.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was like, ooh, and I like Brandy was up tempo and and all that good stuff. So I was like, okay, and the video was very bright,
Right.
colorful.
Yeah.
It had the choreography.
Right.
and the
So-
guy from the video was in. They used the scenes of the younger people
Yeah.
that were in the movie
Yes.
within her video, and he
Exactly.
was
'Cause
considered
Tyreek
good
was in
looking.
that. Yeah, wasn't
Because his
Tyreek?
brother was in that
I think
group
so.
of Imagine.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I do remember
Yeah.
Imagine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, his little brother was in that group of Imagine.
Yeah,
And he was considered good looking.
and he was on Sesame Street.
No, I didn't buy into the consideration,
No, right,
but
yeah.
he was. That mole
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
never going to stop growing.
So where do you all think Sitting Up in My Room fits within the context of the story of Waiting to Exhale?
That's a good question.
I think the gap between like Robin, when did we all know that we were adults? Like all of us are 30 something years old,
Yeah.
but there had to be a day in your life that you realized like I'm grown, and it wasn't the day that you turned 18. It wasn't the day that you graduated from college, but there was an experience that happened. But you kind of teeter on the fence of being like, I'm still me, I'm still young, I'm not old, I'm not this.
Yeah.
Transitioning to the fact that, you know, I'm not the same as I used to be. I am getting older.
Yeah.
And I think that sitting in my room is like sitting there thinking like, you know, like I'm Robin. Like, you're not
But
21.
This implies though
29.
that as grown ass women, we don't still sit up in our room and think about people. So like,
Yeah.
We do.
you know, to some degree, it sounds youthful, but like, baby. Let me
Yeah.
find somebody new. I'm trying to figure out how my name fits with that
Hey,
last name. Does it work? No, it may not.
Right.
Okay, let me write it down on paper and see if it rhymes. You know,
Yeah.
there's some degree of innocence to this and of like hopeless romanticism that I think is sort of timeless, right? Or is ageless at least. And I hope it's important for us. Like I hope we keep that girlish spirit of like, oh my gosh, I've got a crush. Like I want to be with somebody for the rest of my life and not be sitting up in my room thinking about their ass. Like,
Right.
I mean, I would say,
Because I think that
Yeah.
if you listen to the soundtrack, you can be a hard time criminal. Like, I wish you would try to hurt me in a hurtful situation, but like keeping that like femininity and keeping your girlishness, it's kind of hard when someone then played you and you don't look like a fool in front of.
this is a cycle. Like these four are a cycle. Like, all right, there's some build up. Oh hell, I'm at the bottom.
Let's go back to
We're gonna let
number
it
one.
flow. All right, I might have a little crush.
But you know what? I think the beauty of Sitting Up in My Room, because I remember, you know, just singing this to, you know, people I've dated, like just silly. It just reminds you that love can be really silly. Love can be like, you know, really, you know, fun, like that kind of stuff.
And
like,
easy.
And a lot of
easy,
love and
yeah.
relationships do start like that, right? Like the
Right.
first thing
That's
you
how
experience
it's
are
supposed
those butterflies and that
Right. Yeah.
happiness of, okay, I'm sitting up in my room till
Yeah.
the niggas call me, but I know
Yeah,
it's
but
okay.
also the confession of like I must confess I'm a mess. I always.
I'm a mess,
I mean,
yeah.
I'm a mess for you or whatever.
Yeah.
she's
I
saying.
might not have texted that. That's
Yeah.
alright.
But the thing that's dangerous in
It was
this
wrong time.
song is tell me you'll invest in my happiness. You know, like let's unpack it in a critical level, because what it does is it sets up the responsibility of one's happiness on somebody else.
But I think that
You can make an investment
I'm
into
about
my
to-
happiness, but ultimately
I want to sit
it's
in
my
room.
responsibility. My happiness is my responsibility. So I think to some degree, we still need to unpack. So like y'all know how we listen to some of these old lyrics, and you just be
I
like,
know.
damn,
Oh,
but I love it.
But I think within the tropes of love, because love is so messy and love is so problematic at times. Like I think that we're always gonna end love songs. I think we're always gonna find
the question mark.
something,
Yeah.
And I think that that's the beauty of it, right? Because just like art shouldn't be perfect because artists aren't perfect, and artists are people. So it allows each of us to see ourselves in art,
Sure.
right? Like how we all said, we could, even though we're both male, identify as males, we could still see ourselves in the main characters of this movie. You know what I mean? We see ourselves embodied through these songs in some way, no matter if we were 11 singing It Hurts Like Hell or 31 singing Sitting Up in My Room. So I think that's like a really beautiful thing about art that's intentional and that is developed to impact. So let's see.
I guess I want to go back to something that Ashley said.
Yeah.
About like us taking responsibility for some of the lines that were in the song. It's like there always is a question mark, especially when you're young. I think you are able to come better to terms with the need to need. Like when you're young, you do feel like you need other people. And as you get older, you're like, oh, I shouldn't have needed no one like that. But I think that
sis.
when
We know how to pick them.
yeah, when you, I think that as you grow older, how can you not be with someone if you don't think you need to be around them? And I think that like we're kidding ourselves and lying to ourselves when we have like this false pride of like I don't need to be around the people that I need to be around.
Yeah,
and it's
but
okay.
what does healthy
in
need?
my
You're
room.
right. But what does healthy need look like? Because I think that's part of the issue.
Codependency and
That's
like,
right.
yeah,
We don't
recognizing
define what that
myself
means.
as myself.
We don't define. Don't worry, you're just getting a little bird because it's essential.
Yeah.
It's essential to the heart.
Yeah.
We black.
But like also Brandy's aesthetic in this video, these box braids is sort of really.
And then like just moving around and like
Yeah,
keep on changing
yeah.
outfits and like really sitting in my room getting ready for you. It's not just
Just
thinking
like
about you.
right.
I am impressed.
Right.
I am
Yeah.
impressed.
I mean, it is a good song, and it does still knock. I'm not even gonna lie, it does still knock.
It's
So-
really got you ready for her next album.
like 2 weeks ago. So
Everybody that was
Listen.
on here got a hit album as a reward for just their one song effort. Like that got you
Except
ready for
Shauna.
but we never knew her and we still don't.
Sonia Marie.
We never knew her and we never knew her. No
So
shade.
it was the lyrics to another Brandy song, Nothing Ventured, Nothing Gained.
Almost doesn't count. Almost doesn't count.
Almost doesn't
that's
count.
Baby.
Oh.
Baby, nothing ventured, nothing.
No.
she said,
I'm
like,
saying
another
also.
Oh,
Yeah, in addition, almost doesn't count. Yeah, because they almost had a hit album.
Almost.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think we talk about, one youthful act that was, kind of making waves and, landed on this powerhouse soundtrack. Let's talk about another youthful act. So the next track is This Is How It Works by TLC. And you think about it, when you really are thinking about Babyface, right, is sitting here developing this soundtrack that's gonna go to this really impactful movie, that's kind of a movie geared toward not maybe the youngest crowd, right?
Yeah.
Right.
This movie is for a woman that has lived a little bit of life.
Yeah, for sure.
So
Wears
but
a power
you think
suit
about
to the
it though.
A soft curl,
So-
child, curl under.
But to think about it musically, see, I can't even. It's like
Shoulders
a
on
classroom of
fleek.
kindergartners. But you think about it, right? You have these powerhouse voices, so that's why Brandy can still even though she's younger, it's okay, well we still see how she ended up here.
was
TLC
her
aren't
god-
powerhouse
Whitney
vocalists.
Houston was her
though.
godmother.
That's fair.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
TLC musically could be how did they fit in?
Lisa
Which-
Left Eye Lopez.
I'm not dealing
But
with
I
you.
think
No, I
But
think
you
that
know
is
what I
why they
mean?
fit.
But I think it's also because TLC had already established themselves, even though they are not powerhouse vocalists,
Right.
it's the sexuality of it.
Uh-huh.
Because I think
Yeah.
at that point, I'm not sure if Crazy Taxi had already
It
came
had.
out.
Yeah.
It had, but then
Red Light
also
Special was on.
right, but then also
And that
if
was
you,
Babyface.
but if you think of the context of the album,
This is his
the story, and all this
group.
other kind of
Yeah.
stuff,
Curating people he works
it's
with.
sex.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
sexy.
sure.
And that was one of the groups that kind of bought that idea of sexuality besides Salt and Pepper, all them other kind of folks. So I could see kind of where they fit into that.
I do
For
think
sure.
it's interesting though that a man writes "This Is How It Works."
This
You
is
know what I
true.
mean? Because quite frankly, men don't know how it works.
At all.
But once they
there
do
is
write
one-
songs like this.
If there is
I think that men need to
Yeah,
know how it
exactly,
works.
exactly.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think Kenny learned
I
some
know
things decades along the way as well. But Kenny was learned by a woman on how it works.
Well, that's the only way a man is gonna learn a woman is to be with a woman, right?
Yeah, but then that does place a little bit of responsibility to become professors over.
But are we putting too much conversation in on this? This was the highway to get to Mary J. I hate to say this how it works. This is how it showed me my finger work to hit next.
Oh, no.
It was not songs that like when you're dealing with Exhale. Why does it hurt so bad? Let It Flow. It hurts like hell. Sitting in my room. Those are all top five,
Yep.
and those are the top five on the album.
Yeah.
Then you get to go and your mother must have told you to vacuum the living room while playing This Is How It Works because it's not a song that you have to hear. It doesn't add like.
I played the freaking.
But see, I get it, but and this is why I made the argument though, right? And I bring up the question because I think that this song, I think it works to like as a. Okay, next song. You know, it keeps the album moving because you can't really go from sitting up 5 in my
minutes
room.
long. That is a long
But you got you can't go from sitting in my room even tempo wise to Not Gonna Cry because that's a doom 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 doom.
They could have flip flopped My Funny Valentine.
But I still don't think it would have worked there. I think that you needed
and
that
honestly,
TLC.
I think they needed more sexuality on this very, very contemplative, very, very, whatever album. And if you were selling sex in 1995, right after Crazy Sexy Cool, you were going to pick somebody that you probably already worked with.
If that's the case, they should have just had my girl Adina Howard.
That's the reason why that smooth
just let Adina Howard do all
T-shirt
that
and
tracking.
However,
not Adina Howard.
I said this is what I said. You know what I'm saying?
That's not what this movie was about.
They could have dropped the whole nasty.
That's why it's a classic. It's because we didn't need to have sex. That's why when you guys were talking about a sex scene that Bobby Brown was witnessing, he must have wrote it because I cannot remember one time that I was sitting there thinking like, "Ooh, this is how people have sex." I'm learning from it.
But there was sex. There had to be sex in the movie, though. Because
there was some love making. There was love making, but no sex.
Because I think a lot of things, right? We're 23 years removed from this movie, so
and that's why I knew when sex was on TV at 10 years old. I could tell, and there was no sexiness going on in Witness movie.
Well, I mean, maybe some people, right? I mean, I didn't see this movie at that age, so I didn't really. When I got to it, I wasn't like thinking about that. But like, I wonder though, maybe this was. I mean,
in the 90s, if you had any kind of scene, like if anybody was shirtless. That was, you know what I'm saying? That was something to write home about.
The 90s was also the home of Freaknik. Freaknik had reached its peak in 95 on a certain level. There was no way that black people were scared of sex at that time. So they made a deliberate effort to want to make sure they get that Tyler Perry church crowd, and there is no sex really in that movie. It is a good story. There is no busting it wide open.
Well, yeah, no one's busting it wide open. But I mean, there are people.
Well, Robin ain't get that baby by praying, okay?
Right. And you need it.
Robin, Mother Mary.
I'm glad that you brought that up because, I think there are songs there are songs that are inspired by the movie, and there's parts of the movie that are inspired by songs. Yeah. And I think that, for this could have just been a track they needed to have a sex scene to. Like if Babyface had and I think that if you talk about the process, like he could have made the song, made the music in the song and been like, okay, who do I need to put on this track? Somebody that I know can do sexy well, and I'm just gonna put TLC because this was playing when Robin was having sex. They were selling sex. Whether they were sexy or not.
And they were selling a new definition of sex.
But he also wrote their most like sensual songs.
Right.
He wrote Red Light.
Exactly. So of course he was
given their
digging on you, stuff like that.
Yeah,
I know what y'all been doing.
Interesting given their age.
Right.
Yeah. But I think though, as we did talk about the high, every song being a highway up to this next song, which is interesting because this track comes in at number 7. But I think that most people, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think that most people would say that this song is the heart of the album. Not Gonna Cry is if you need to pick a summative song.
And they put it like midway between.
Yeah.
And I think that was perfect.
That's to get you to listen through TLC's.
Okay, well,
this is how
all right, listen through that.
We talked about.
Okay, so Not Gonna Cry. I think that was interesting about the track listing is that they could have made the song Not Going to Cry. And I think that by 1995, I'm sure, don't get me wrong, I'm not the expert of music, that we used our own language, our own lingo,
and
our own pronunciation. But like when you saw "Not Gonna Cry," especially from Mary J, who's not known for her pronunciation skills.
All right.
And what I mean by pronunciation, like overly announcing the words and taking the feeling away from the meaning of the word by just trying to pronounce the word.
Yeah.
And when you get to "Not Gonna Cry," if you have survived tracks 1 through 5, and you definitely got a chance to have a bathroom break for TLC, and you made it to "Not Gonna Cry," which everyone did because that was the lead single off the album, you sat there and cried to the narrative verbatim of like a book of like being a lover and a secretary, working 7 days of the week, you know, putting the kid, like these are not experiences that are not
the job when no one else
was there. Like there's not a lot of women that can say I did that for a man, but there's every woman that can feel like I did that for a man. I did that. I did do that. You know, whatever that means.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting too because you think about Mary at this point has put out, you know, 2 studio albums. Like my life really, and to a degree, like you needed my life, Mary, to get this Mary, right? Because you know she really had allowed herself to get to a space of emotional vulnerability in this track that you need in order to pull off "Not Gonna Cry." So this is the song that I know every lyric to. And just watching her perform it to this day live is an experience.
But I will say this, in considering like the influences of this movie, the soundtrack and all this other kind of stuff, one thing that popped in my head was a tribute to the blues women. So if you think about your, you know, Billie Holiday, if you think of like, you know, Ma Rainey and like all this other kind of stuff. So when you talk about like, you know, "Not Gonna Cry," I just remember like the blues women, like, you know, they had their own vernacular when they were talking. So this is actually, I would honestly, like, you know, thinking about it right now, say that this was honestly my first like blues women song that I could like connect with as a kid, because I just remember like it's just
this idea of being unapologetic, right? Like not code switching, because it just is what it is. Like how many of us code switch in certain spaces so that we can appeal to whiteness, or we can feel we can be associated with intelligence, and we can be associated with all these things. I appreciate that there are multiple songs on here, and y'all know how I feel about the other one.
We get in there.
Yeah, I won't jump to it, but I appreciate that that it does not have to be the King's English. You know, there's something different about not going to cry.
Yeah.
There's something different about not gonna cry.
It's not as accessible.
And then not gonna cry is at the bottom.
Not gone. Like
that created a generation of women who not gonna cry. Like you'd be hard pressed to see me gonna cry on someone doing something because I said at 10 years old, listening to the song.
It is trash.
It's okay. Yeah, but I think that you have, like, think about the babies that were born in 1992 when this was written. They're 27 years old now, or about to be 27, and you have a whole generation of girls who are Robins and are not going to cry either. And that's something that we complain about. But there's also a certain beauty in I'm not going to cry because you did something like this to me. Because that's what you want me to do.
Wipe my tears.
Should have left your ass
a long time ago.
Exactly.
And then she gave you exact time that she should have left. It was
and
should have left your ass.
So it's so interesting because before, I think this was maybe in the previous episode, you said one of Bernie's strengths was that, you know, she never had a moment of weakness when she tried to go back to her husband.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, you never see her try to slip back or begging, and even when they're seeing each other in court, even when they're seeing it was on sight. You know, it was like, nah, fuck you. Like even though I love you for all these years. But you saw the regret in his eyes. Like that was the winning of like he did. Exactly, because it's just like there's no way that I'm gonna love you for as long as I did and have you do me so grimy and give you the satisfaction of one, seeing tears, and then two, being vulnerable to you anymore, because you put me in a situation where I couldn't help but be vulnerable to you.
But here's the question:
but I'm not going to let you experience that again.
If I hate to say this word, devil's advocate, because I'm not advocating for the devil, but
I love this one.
to be the
counter argument.
The counter argument of it all. It's like if Bernie set herself up to be the image of this invisible woman, like you have this invisible man, like this invisible woman that she had really put on a pedestal, which was the white woman.
Yeah.
And he decides to go get the authentic thing, not the bootleg white woman that you were being, Bernie. He went and got the real Louis Vuitton, not the swap meet Vuitton. And you're mad at me for taking you back to Durant Square where you belong and going to the
on the main line.
That's all I'm saying.
But I think so. But what if we rephrase
like,
this though? But what if seeing crying as a weakness has not led us to a good place, right? Yeah. And I'm not saying that that's what this song does. But if you just take this song at face value and say, all right, I gotta tighten my shit up. I don't get to cry. I think that's unhealthy, and that's how you end up setting some shit on fire. So to that end, you know,
it was a perfect fit.
Yeah, to that end.
But isn't there an over crying now? Like there is a I don't have a reason not to cry now generation going on where everything is a reason to cry. There is no excuse not to cry. Anything happen, like girl, you just let it go, let it out. No, girl, you just stubbed your toe. Sit down and let it go, let it flow. So they have like the balance of like we do have mental health things within Black women that we are strong and we don't let things out. But I think that the way to exhale gave you a moment to exhale depending on what you're going through within your day, within your life.
So by the time you get done letting it flow, then you need to be done crying. By the time you get to track number, 7?
Because letting it flow said first thing Monday morning, but you had to get through the whole week. See, she never talked about saying. Not gonna cry, gonna get you
so
through
you
the
raggedy,
week.
you raggedy, you holding in tears. You know what I'm saying? I think as good as this song is, it can be dangerous if taken at face value. Asking Black women not to cry, I think, has hurt Black women significantly because I think if we cried more, quite frankly, maybe we, you know what?
But again, I think a man, because you had your friends to cry to. Like, she want to cry to a man. She's not cry about
the other
a man.
thing about that is, do we need to see it as a sign of weakness? Has she gone back and asked Michael to come back? Right? Yeah, this is somebody you've loved all your life. Somebody you've been with this many years. Love doesn't turn off. And so if she had gone back in the movie and said, I'm willing to work through it, let's go to counseling, whatever it is, I think we need to be able to reshape what we think weakness is to some degree, because I think we need to figure out how we define that.
I don't disagree with you at all.
Yeah.
Her husband want the nigga you do that with.
No, I agree.
I
mean, he was trash.
But
you know what? But he wasn't trash. He was the guy that everybody was happy to see you marry. We're not saying that those friends were also the ones that when your girl gets jackpot, when she meets her man, her boo, her soulmate, a lot of these men could be ID channel killers. We don't know. But when we see him, we're like, oh, he look good. He treats you good. Ooh, girl, he
got
good.
A good job.
He got a good job. He got good dick. So we think he deserves to be with you. And those girls co-signed on, they were at Bernie's wedding. That's an unwritten story that you co-signed the girl that wanted a white girl. Like, that really didn't want to be with me.
I think that kind of goes back to, we are the children of this generation, and this is the kind of work that we're doing to try to understand.
Which is different.
It's a lot different. Like, you know, we saw, like, you know, Bernie, you know, go through what she was going through. We saw what Gloria went through. Like, you know, we are the children that's trying to, like, you know, trying to understand in our context of how.
And good for us.
Yeah. but it doesn't make you any less lonelier than those Win XL women. Yeah, so as you're digesting the material and becoming a scholars of loneliness, that's exactly what you're doing. You snatch my wig. They just said you got a doctorate degree. I'm sorry. You got a doctorate degree in being single. I'm sorry. I don't know what to say. My edges ain't gonna grow back after today. But
so as we adjust wigs,
Jesus. Let's just move right on to track 8.
I need to count somebody right now.
So let's get to track 8 really quickly. So we have My Funny Valentine, which is the only song that was not written, produced, you know, by Babyface on this song. So it's interesting, you know, why do you think, you know, we can get to who sung it later, but this song is a very, and like you said, you were talking about blues and blues inspiration. This is a very popular song, especially in the 90s when you had this reemergence of Afrocentrism and looking back to like the 60s and things of that
nature. That was heavy in the movie.
So why do you think, I mean, I might have just answered my own question for me, but why do you think that he chose, you know, like if I'm not going to write a song, if I'm going to pick a song from the lexicon, like why this song?
I think that was the resurgence of that smooth jazz generation, and that
Q's juke joint.
The Q's juke joint, and like that was the jazz's last chance for his comeback. And I don't think that jazz musicians really embraced that moment very well. But it was an eternal effort to make sure that jazz didn't die, and that we understood that our struggles are not just rooted in the things that happen to us, but they're rooted in the music that got us through it. So it's like you have a movie, you have music, but we're all talking about the message 20 years later, not them two as separate entities.
So I think this is an ode to loving free people. Like this is, as much as the song bothers me, because it just vocally is just it's just oh god it just that's what I'm saying.
I wasn't old enough for it at the time.
Yeah, I wasn't old enough. I just
but
it's called Next.
Old as hell.
There is a lyric
with
though.
the square behind it.
There's a lyric though when it goes in and it talks about don't you change your hair for me, like don't go changing basically for me. And I do think that that's a powerful message that we can all benefit from. So while it's not one of my favorite tracks, it's not one of my favorite performances from Shaka, the God Khan. I just it does have a beautiful message that I hope informs like Gloria's relationship with Gregory, for example. And I keep using their character names and their real names. Y'all know what I mean. But like that relationship, I think is her for the first time saying, you know, and she was like, "Oh, I'm big," and he's like, "I like my women a little thick. What's good?"
With them meat on their
And then
bones.
all of a sudden she carried it differently. So what does it look like to be unapologetic about how you show up? I think that's what we get out of it. Outside of that, Shaka was just yelling her ass off, child.
But I think about unapologetic about your
beautiful.
growth too. It's like Gloria was a representation that she was the only one in the movie that was raising a man. Other people were trying to get a man, but she was having a man in her household.
Bernie was, he was a little
Now
younger.
some
She
of
did
them
have
were
a son.
raising men.
I'm not saying like raising
Robin was
black
raising
boys.
Leon.
I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about like she had a son that was transitioning into manhood.
Right.
We all know like okay, different stages of development, but she's raising a man looking for a man. So like what it takes for Gloria. Yeah, what do you do as a woman that wants your man to be better than the men that's out here in these streets, better than their dad, better than this? And what does it take to make that gumbo, to
That's
make that
interesting.
jambalaya taste good?
That's interesting that you bring it up because if you recall, the one time where her and Gregory Hines' character really got into it was over him
That's
giving
right.
his son advice.
Yeah.
So, and him trying to advise her on how to raise that man.
Yeah,
So that's
A person with an absentee father. And he's sitting there saying, like, as a man, so when we look at Wayne Exhale, there were moments where men were trying to do these masculine, quote unquote, whatever that means, masculine male things. And they were kind of like argued with for even trying. Like, you looking for a father figure. The guy said, I've been absentee and I don't want you either. And I just want to meet my son for the first time of 10,000 times. And then you still have a guy that said, I'll teach him how to roke a screwdriver. I don't know what game Gregory Hines was playing with him. But he was teaching him something. It was like, don't talk to my son like that. Don't tell him.
after you, because she did also ask him to talk to him, right?
And
but she
then
wanted
said,
him
"Don't
to
talk
kind
to
of
him."
like
Convince him not to.
not to
Yeah, to say what she wanted him to say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that was, of
Yeah.
course, he was
Like,
playing
no.
the saxophone because that was a smooth jazz generation.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
She went to the
yeah.
music school.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we have some of that. I mean, that kind of goes for a little while for these
It
next few
does.
tracks. Because the next one is "And I Gave My Love to You."
Yes, God.
You know, and that one I
Guys
love
can
as
take over
well.
that one.
So that's Sonia Marie, right?
Yeah. That was like the first poetry track.
Sanja.
And
That's it.
No, no, it was.
It's,
Like,
I think it's
I saw
Sanja,
that, like-
not Sonia. I think it's Sanja.
what I love about
Are you here for real?
No, because I work with someone named Sanja, and it's not Sonia with the J in there. Like, it's Sanja. Like,
I think there are people that pronounce it like Sonia too.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, the J is Sanja.
Yeah,
Oh, I didn't know that
it's just
English
a
has silent
pronunciation.
letters.
No,
Oh,
it's
my
not. It's not an
goodness.
English. It's not
Go ahead.
English like
Play no
Sanja.
video.
yeah. But yeah, so what I really love about this is the way it starts musically, right? So it's like I don't know, it's just fun. You know, it's like wistful kind of, you know, like the way that it starts in the music and it's very jazz and it's very, you know, like all that other stuff. But then it's also we have a lot of lower register women on this album, you know, because this isn't like a very high pitched, you know, woman either. Like you have her who's singing the song and it's essentially like kind of like a spoken word / singing type of thing going on.
Right.
Yeah.
This was also one of the first two songs that opens up the movie.
Yeah, it was.
So
It
like
was.
you just think about that,
Mhm.
and how that starts to set a tone, how that song sets a tone visually, and in the film, but when you listen to the soundtrack, it doesn't really function in the same way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right. It works in the movie, and then it's just I don't know.
And the soundtrack, it kind of like it helps to tempo set again. You know, because you need that that transition from you coming off Not Gonna Cry and off of My Funny Valentine. Okay, so we need something else to just kind of like shift it a little bit again, slow it down, but not slow it down to a blues sort of slow, but to just kind of get it on down to like a mid.
But still keep it like a up-tempo jazz.
Yeah. In order to make room for the next song. But I think, with this song, I think that it was a good track.
Musically.
Yeah, it's a bop.
Yeah.
And Sonia also Sonia is also co-wrote it, so she was one of the people who wasn't a rapper that got to co-write with Babyface, which says something about how he felt about her artistry. And I think that a person like Babyface, and I think that we can't ignore, of course, Forest Whitaker and Babyface in their role in creating this very female moment. You got the sun and the moon there at all times. So you have him co-writing this one song with this one lady, and I think that also
he probably did the hook.
She probably wrote the spoken word part.
She doesn't, unless she's singing the background vocals, she doesn't sing at all.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I think he wrote the hook.
He wrote the hook and she did all the talking. But anytime a woman wanted to have a voice, and I will say this as far as this rap conversation that I'm always having, is that these women are writing what they have to say down. That the singers don't have to write their songs, and we don't ever say like, oh, Whitney didn't write that song, so we don't like the song. But it would be something if Sandra Marie is a spoken word poet and Lisa Lopez is a rapper, and she's not actually putting her
pen on it.
Yeah, exactly. That would have meant something. Yeah, that's so true.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Never didn't agree with that point.
No, but we're gonna bemoan it until somebody says uncle.
So this leads us right into
If you couldn't tell, none of us like this next song.
I'm sorry. What song are you talking about?
Oh no, I'm playing. I was being.
I was like, what? I was like, what song is
But
this?
I don't like the song. So I wasn't playing, but I was.
Yeah, that's why I was like, there
was
are mixed
joking,
emotions
but it's
going
not
on.
my favorite. It's called Next. There's like 3 nexts.
But you must just didn't like the kind of like sexy like song.
No, I think the issue was that I was 10 years old.
Do it again. What kind of song?
I do it. Do what I didn't like. Do
What
that
kind of songs is it,
so
Brittany?
everybody can see it. Do that But no, I remember being 10 years old and listening to the album, and there were songs that age-wise, I love, like I've always loved music. I skipped along because I'm not listening to you scat over a record. Like there's Billie Holiday.
Now,
but I wasn't. But what I'm saying is, when we go to All Night Long and all these other kind of songs, it's like I couldn't relate at 10.
I will say,
and I heard it at 10.
But you know what? I would say that.
I was about to say. On that.
But the thing is,
on that 10, I was like,
applies.
this isn't.
But they were given quite a bit of permission in this song. Do you any way you want now? We gotta qualify that thing because there's some conversations you need to be able to have prior to the laying down. Like, just imagine if somebody had been into some wild shit that you're not into, and shit like you can do it any kind of way. That's what I'm saying.
Maybe she meant it.
But here's what you also have to remember
that the movie never represented that song,
Yeah.
so I didn't mind skipping it at 10 because every song I liked at that age was a movie from the motion picture. The movie never had that sex appeal, and I'm going to say it to the end. When no one's giving it any way you want.
But you also reminded though that these songs are written by a man.
Yeah.
And this is where it shows up. It is most obvious. Just like we had the conversation around Babyface, and we're talking about TLC. Like it's certain songs that like it's gonna show up in, and the songs that are about sex, quote unquote. It's definitely gonna show that it's a man writing. Yeah. I mean, this is one of my cuts. You know, for obvious reasons. But I mean, I just really think that it was a good different use of SWV's voice than what I think that we had heard from them before.
And by SWV you mean Coco?
The harmonies were there on the chorus.
Yeah, but Lily and Taj.
I mean, but you know, we are on that note podcast. We are a fan of staying.
But when we
in
look
your
at
lane.
it, there's only like
Stay in your
two
vocal
groups,
lane.
two groups on the entire album, and
No, it's
TLC.
three.
Well, three. I mean, for real.
Yeah.
For real. You really gonna really?
Let's
Really?
we gonna say them damn time.
Oh, damn.
Like I said, there's two groups and another group, another collective name for real. But TLC and SWV, these are like, you have two groups that were trios, competitors of one another. That were really doing two different vibes of music. Like one was doing this, and they were doing the same thing in a different way at the same time, but they never had like, but it still was a time where like no one looked at this and said, I'm not getting on that because SWV's on there. I'm not getting on there because TLC.
Why would you miss your time to blow though?
And I think that like when we think about the message behind our track listing and why we like the songs and why everybody deserves to be on there, whether it was my song at 10 or 30, it still deserves to be there because they were part of the moment.
Right.
Yeah.
They were.
Yeah, they were
Absolutely.
the people to get if you were doing
this.
the soundtrack.
This is like for me whenever I think about the album of the year Grammy, which I think is why it's fitting that this was nominated. An album of the year to me should always be sort of like a musical time capsule of the world in that year.
Exactly.
And that's what this is, you know what I mean?
But it's
Like,
a
I can
musical
tell
time
you-
capsule for black people, according to the category.
Well, that's why they didn't win.
Yeah,
but
that's why they
were
won.
nominated.
Because
Right.
but even though white women, I watched Pretty Little Liars. I didn't watch Dawson's Creek, bitch. You done been through some Bernadine shit. But there's a total. Like, that's why there's a problem with the whole feminist women movement and black women and white women getting together as one. Is that there's a total disconnect of like,
and there's a denial and lived
it's
experience.
called lying.
For sure.
Denial is a complicated way of saying you're lying.
No, that's so true. But I think though that like it's and laying all that out on the line.
Yeah.
I do think that this album is a very, I can look at this now and while some have ebbed and flowed in their fame, since then, I can still look at this and be like, okay, if I want to know who was popping R&B at 95,
you look at
like
that.
honestly, that 94 to like 96, we're gonna give those 3 years. Because they had to be popping and get on here.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, they were popping while the soundtrack was blowing up, selling over 12 million copies.
Except for real,
like,
Sanja Marie.
Oh my God.
But they're gonna always, but
These
they're
were
always
talented
gonna be.
people.
They're
They
always
clearly were
here,
talented,
though.
and they were.
But
They're
will
gonna tell their
always
kids,
live through
I
this
was on the
stuff.
album with Whitney Houston.
You know what I'm saying?
They got my streams.
And they're on a record that's sold over diamond.
That's it,
Yeah.
and that's
So-
more than a lot of people
and
who
what
are
I'm
even
saying-
solo artists who blew can even say.
Exactly.
And Babyface picked these people regardless of like you're on the album with Whitney Houston, Aretha Franklin, Shaka Khan, Mary. These are legends. These are classes of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But then you also have sprinkled in there chances for the future. And I think that like what we're not saying within the album is like, what if Pharrell had blown up? What if Shauna had become a big artist? This would be the first start that Babyface recognized something within them as a producer.
Yeah.
Because at the
And he
same,
may very well still be working with them. Like we may not know
We didn't know them, but they could have been doing your best.
I'm just saying.
Boom, boom. No.
I'm saying maybe a background on a track.
They could have been in the room saying,
She played the cello
Say
on one of
love.
the tracks. I'm just saying.
But I think like to their point though, like we still have to also be honest in the fact that Mary's a legend now, but Mary was 2 albums in at that point.
Well,
Like,
Mary always was a
TLC are
karaoke
legends
singer
now.
until she did Just Want to Be With You. What I mean by karaoke, what I mean by
Uh-huh.
that is that Mary J. Blige, because
The
she was
nasty
so
cover.
she went out of her way to be true to who she is and the people that she was around. The people that she did songs with were her friends. That community that she did rap songs with was her community. A lot of singers who had soulful voices would not jump on rap songs. She based her career off of rap music. There's not a lot of singers that can say, I rooted my career in rap. Lauryn Hill, Mary, there's a whole generation of them. I mean, I ain't gonna. But they're all the same people who did songs with each other.
Yeah.
So when you think about moving on.
I mean, I was waiting for you to just tie it all together.
I was so tied into what Mary being like, even though she was like, oh, she's from the streets, she just had some new stuff. But when she did things, she did it in an authentic way. And Mary has always won because of her authenticity. Whether it sounds like karaoke, it sounds like she has a very accessible voice.
Except that chicken nugget song or whatever, that chicken tender joint.
Yeah, I mean, she made her problems, but when she said real love and when she started
sang
asking
to
questions
Hillary
about
Clinton.
herself, Mary has a very self-reflective catalog.
But let's
to
bring this back.
But to bring it all back together,
Yeah.
we love music so much that we, But I think that if you're talking about singers that rooted themselves in rap, and this is what the last note on SWV, and we can transition to the next track. SWV did it too, right?
They were rapping.
Absolutely.
Right.
And they were bad rapping, but they were doing it.
And I don't know if we mentioned it on the first part, or I think maybe somebody did. I know we were talking about it before we got to filming, but just that, Left Eye is like one of the only appearances by a female rapper on this album, but there's still very much so the spirit of hip hop
Oh, for sure.
interwoven into this piece.
And heavy
which
lyricism.
which is like, if you talk about soul, R&B, hip hop, blues, jazz, you're seeing this album cover the
All
black
of that.
music.
Exactly.
Right.
Because it takes it right into, and that's a good segue into track 11.
I
So,
do what I can.
so we're talking about basically. So what this song is inspired by is very black. It's a very much a thing of like the blues, the jazz, the scatting, the improvising, the ad-libbing. Like this is a song with no lyrics. There are there are no lyrics to the song, but there's a feeling, there's a vibe, there's a mood. Like you know what you're feeling when you're listening to the song.
It was Solange coming home before she came home. Like it was like 1985.
This is very like
album with no lyrics.
And the thing, Shantae Moore, another person that Babyface knew was gonna do what she needed to do. I almost imagine him giving her the track and just telling her to go in the studio and say some stuff.
Yeah.
And he picked out what he liked and was able to create the song in that way. Like just kind of, ad-lib for a little bit, just vocalize, and then we're going to figure out how to make this track.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's the beauty too, again, of getting this album at the time that we got it, but also now the beauty in being able to reflect and look back, because Shantae Moore, again, is still a relatively newcomer to the mainstream at this point.
Yeah.
So you took a relative newcomer who, has this vocal ability that Shantae Moore didn't create a career off of scatting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you take her, you pull out something in her voice, and it was almost like with this soundtrack, it allowed Babyface to pull out in each of these artists something that either wasn't at the forefront of their musical careers, or something that maybe we forgot that they were really, really, really good at.
Yeah.
And I think that this is probably one of the most stark and shining examples, because maybe not stark, most shining examples, but with Shantae Moore, because you take her and you say, okay, I'm gonna give you this beat and you're gonna scatter across it, and it's like one of the first things that the audience hears when they watch this film. Like that's huge.
Yeah.
Like on a movie with stakes this high, how you open that sucker up means something. And musically, he opened it up with this song.
Right.
So
I think musically this song adds something that the rest of them don't.
Yeah,
Y'all know I'm
so
a
too.
fan.
Yeah,
we do.
no, I
I'm
love
a
this
fan
song.
of this song.
I
And
do.
first of all,
Yeah.
scatting in general
Defend your
embarrasses
point.
me. I haven't figured out why when people get the D-da-bo, D-da-ba-D and
I
all of
always
that.
thinking that they're stalling.
It embarrasses me, and I'm still unpacking it. But I think what this song does is it gives us a layered perspective of music. So you can't listen to this song waiting for lyricism, right? Like you're gonna listen to this song because you're a musician.
Yeah.
And so this song is different than the rest of them. I think what interesting, and I Gave My Love to You starts to do in the beginning. And then the song is start talking.
I've
so,
always
not
thought,
that it ruins it, but they even sound
I've
similar.
always thought that these songs, those two songs, are almost like sister songs.
They are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
they
they're
are.
very,
No, they are.
like the
They
mood
are.
is just very similar,
That's
and
right.
they just, they're almost two different sides of the same coin.
This is what music looks like for people who like songs that have words and things like that. That's fine. That's cute. This is a musician's dream. It's layered. She hits that whistle note that's just a little bit hidden under the track,
Right.
but you can't.
It's enough to,
it haunts
it's
you.
inescapable.
But like
it's like a haunting song. Yeah.
and that's the thing that's the beautiful thing about Way You. She don't say one word that makes any sense in the King's English, but when I tell you I understand it in a way that doesn't make sense, Way You gives me all the good vibes.
I picture like,
When I
and this
try
is
to
very 90s too. Like I picture like blankets like billowing,
Yeah.
like just like
guys
the
talk about the
cotton
white
fresh,
blankets, yeah,
you know,
yeah.
like
Yeah,
that
I
thing.
see.
It's
I
like
see
it's like
shears.
Like,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
You know what?
Yeah.
If I had to think of a visual representation, what I think you're describing, y'all remember in kind of that, but even more so, Dreamgirls, the sequence where Dina
Yes.
is like taking the
Yeah,
pictures,
taking the pictures.
and it's just like
yeah, exactly, right. That and a mix of like
I need
the
to
cloudy
listen to
scenes
Way You
of Beautiful
again.
Liar. Yeah.
Because I'm way beyond. I never felt all that off of Way You. I felt it was misspelled and wrong. Like it never gave me.
and this is so shocking because I know that you're a music person, so like.
But I remember when I told you, like, in preparation for this, I didn't listen to the album again. So I'm thinking of it as how I would have remembered it when I was a kid.
See?
Right. So Way is
It probably
way
would not have
beyond.
given you much as
So
a
if I go in
kid.
the car and I feel old again, and now I'm feeling like I'm the age of the woman in Way Next
Way
Down.
You
is-
So I
Way
should
You
like
is
every song
sponsored.
on there.
It's
But
sponsored
I'm
by
not
Pine
doing
Sol.
with Way You.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the fact that Way You is sponsored by Pine Sol.
I would say
And this is a Saturday morning whole vibe that you will clean the fucking floorboards.
Can I give you a side note though
Yeah.
about
Okay.
the songs
Yeah.
that were hits without being hits? I just happened to read this right here where it says that this is how it works, and My Funny Valentine charted because of radio airplay, meaning that people called in and requested for My Funny Valentine, and this is how it works. And these were two of the songs that I think we kind of individually or one or the other wrote off as saying these were not hits, but at the time in 1995, people were calling in like, "I want to hear this how it works" and My Funny Valentine.
I would say for me, and maybe I'm showing my strange kid vibe. Way You, like that was one of the songs again. Me spitting on a chair as a kid in the middle of summer, and I'm just like listening to Way You, and I'm just like asking again. I think I've mentioned this before. Ask my grandfather, what does "Forget a Bidet" mean? He's like, I don't know. And then it was just like, but it was just like one of those songs that you just
But it's
felt.
provocative.
It's like you just felt it as like you know
Gets the
someone
people
listening
going.
music, so I don't know.
I mean, but if you think about it, that makes sense, right? Because what other songs that we say were accessible as being kids? Sitting up in my room, right?
Yeah.
The lyrics are very easy. The chorus is repetitive.
It's simple.
But Way You is accessible for a child too because there are no lyrics.
That's exactly
So
true.
it's just like you just want to
that's
sound like,
valid.
oh, this
wow.
sounds good.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean?
It's a vibe.
Yeah,
It's
for
a vibe.
sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
it is.
Okay,
So
can we?
what else, Sean?
Yeah,
Ooh,
so
this-
let's go to.
Oh, we gotta give Patty her
Yes.
This one, Patty was serving up the
My
cakes.
mom loved this song.
But
My mom-
okay.
Yeah,
My
yeah,
Love,
yeah.
Sweet Love is a beautiful song. I think that like when you think
Written.
can we give
Oh my
Patty
God.
her respect? Written and vocally, Patty took us to a country western R&B zone that we didn't even know then that I was in. Because My Love, Sweet Love was one of the songs that I could understand and understand in a very clear way. Like I can read those lyrics and say like, this is how I feel about someone. Now how she used her intonation of like my life, it just found out it was like it was like Rapunzel singing to the Wicked Witch, or it just
I'm so sick.
it had Wicked Witchishness to it,
The
and it didn't
the lyrics
hit.
are crazy.
And I think that like when I was young, I was like, oh, this is a wedding song right here. But now that I'm older and I can understand music a little bit better, it's kind of annoying how she's singing that song.
Yeah.
Like,
Because honestly, this
So
song
it's
could have been wrapped
interesting.
up in a verse.
It's interesting because when I listen to this song, I just listened to this song earlier to be sure. Like it could have very easily have been, because we said this was very much a Gloria song.
Yeah.
This could very much have been a Gloria Tyreek song as much as it was her talking about,
I like that.
you know, like
That's very true.
like, and I made to. I was like, okay, let me make sure there ain't nothing freaky in this song before I say this note. But if you look at the lyrics, you know, even when she talks about, you know, your life gives me so much pleasure and all this
And
other
like
stuff,
that,
it's a
yeah.
very much a mother. It could be a mother-son
That's
song,
true.
which is it's more specifically a single mother-son song.
I
you
like
know?
that. I like
Yeah.
that. It's like Britta's got. It's like Dear Mama, Dear Son in a
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's not the only mother-son dynamic you see in the movie. I think it's very clear with Gloria because of her storyline.
Yeah.
But Bernadine also has a very good relationship with her son.
She does.
And the fact that her son don't fuck with the
no,
daddy no more.
no.
And he's a junior, so you know it's all sorts of complications there.
Listen.
But like her son is
But
like
why do you
her
think
rock.
that he didn't fuck with the daddy no more? And like,
Because he heard the mom.
He saw how
So I think there's a conversation about like when we think about Waiting to Exhale, there has to be like a retrospective conversation about what men really were sitting there and trying to protect. He was really protecting his mother's feeling. Like, we are done with him. Like, we don't need us.
Because she almost, it was natural to see the little girl still clean for the daddy.
Yeah.
But I think that it probably would have cut in a different way to still see the son still clean to the dad. That would have, just like even in Gloria's case, right? She has this tight bond with her son, due in part to the fact that the son don't fuck with his father.
But you know what? I think that also kind of goes to
but she let the son get away the way she let the men in her life get away. Like, she didn't discipline Tyreek on anything. She asked everybody to help her raise him. And I think that there is a
sorry about your grades.
She kind of read.
Sorry about letting that little.
You know, as a teacher, I can tell when
Yeah.
somebody ain't raising somebody,
Yeah.
and that you're just asking for help.
Yeah, but I think in also that regards, and if you think of like, you know, systems of divorce, like how that affects oldest children, especially. And I think that in regard of looking at like Tyreek, looking at John Jr., like, you know, those kind of characters, it looks at, okay, the divorce may hurt the oldest child because the oldest child has a better knowledge of how it used to be than a youngest child does.
That's true.
Exactly.
So I think that was, you know, a very
And he's a
interesting.
male child.
And he's a
having
male
to
child,
compensate
right.
through his sexuality.
Precisely.
Because remember, the issue was that he was caught having sex with girls. And Gloria...
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
We talking about
Tyreek.
we're talking about Tyreek.
Tyreek.
Yeah, just being
Tyreek,
old.
Yeah, that he was. He wasn't he caught having sex
Yeah, he
with
was.
a girl,
Yeah.
and she
With
didn't
the white
really know how
girl.
to compensate for it. And so when you think about that, tying it back to the song "My Love, Sweet Love," it's like that you're witnessing this love grow in a way that you don't understand, but you do still know that it is love. And I ain't nobody's parent, but I can understand where with the Tyreek situation that she can't handle a man wanting to have sex with a woman and then having the dad not be able to step in and help out, and he don't even want to have sex with women. He don't want to have sex with me, and it's like that's a very Gloria is the probably.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, taking it back to the track, I think that it could have very easily, you know, that's one song that is talking about a woman-man relationship that doesn't have to be a romantic, sexual relationship, you know, but which takes us into definitely a sexual
Another
relationship.
highlight on the album.
Yeah.
But I think "Kissing You" is the Wait and Exhale song. Like, if there had to be a song that was playing when you did exhale, because there was this idea
true.
of
So it's like
hope,
when you exhale.
of holding your breath, and like we never really got deep into like this conversation about what does breath mean. It's life. I mean, stop breathing and see what happened. And if you've been waiting to exhale for all these years, what has stopped as a process? Spiritually, physically, mentally, what are you not getting? And when you think about like kissing you, is like don't you hold your breath when you're kissing somebody?
To a degree, yeah, maybe.
Or do you exhale?
Oh.
Do you breathe out the nose?
And I think that you have like that.
You exhale.
Shit, you do.
Yeah.
You don't even know what you do, but you're in the moment.
Yeah.
I know you're thinking about something deep, but you're in the moment. I think that waiting to exhale is like being in the moment, waiting for Because in those moments, they thought they were exhaling.
Yeah. And then there's also this with this waiting to exhale, right? When she says, you know, I can't believe it. I can't believe it's real. I can't believe it's you. Can't believe it's you. You know, I think that the waiting to exhale, that's a really good point, because it's like you are kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop. You are kind of like, you know, what's going to happen, you know? Like, and so with this, Kissing You is very cathartic. Kissing You is very like, I don't have to think about the rest of the shit I was just talking about. I don't have to think about not crying no more. I don't have to think about, you know, any of the other stuff, because we're just here. It's funny that because this plays in the movie when Savannah is having sex with the Allstate man. I'm gonna keep calling him that. And so like it's just so funny.
Is it Allstate or is it State Farm?
No, it's Allstate.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Don't get it twisted.
Right.
State Farm is for basketball.
But yeah, so it's just like, even with Savannah, I think that moment, because she knew before immediately before they had sex and immediately after that it was a bad idea.
But
in the moment when they have that scene, you know, it's very much like.
But that's
I mean, I don't know how many times y'all have had logical sex either. Like, let's just call a thing a thing. There is a hypnotizing. I'm saying logical sex. Like, what would it be like to have logical sex? Like in the moment, like and now I'm going to. You know what I'm saying? It would ruin it. There's a mystique about sex where you zone out and zone into something else. You know?
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, I think with this song, so I was reading a little bit earlier, as I keep on saying, but this was Faith's first soundtrack contribution, and mind you, this is like 95, so
it reached 57 on the R&B airplay charts. It was one of the most requested songs.
Right, because I mean, because Faith was starting to blow up, but she didn't have like, I think maybe her first solo album came out like around the time that this album came out. So you thinking about it. If it's a new person on the scene, this ain't back in the day where like people could just pump music out, we could stream it, something like that. So if she's appearing on the soundtrack, she's still a relatively new vocalist. Oh yeah, we gonna call in because we want to hear whatever new music we can hear from her.
And also Faith Evans appears on this soundtrack before two of the most famous rappers of our generation passed away. So this soundtrack comes out in 95. She probably recorded in 94, and this has to be that emancipation song. Her next big hit really is singing for the Biggie thing, and like Kissing You is like, who is she talking about? Because we never really seen the Faith that was in a relationship or with anybody. You just knew her, and now we. So these are all women that are waiting to exhale.
Yeah. But I also think that also starts again, and I've made this argument with Brandon and everybody else, is that this is the low key Faith soundtrack career. Like, this is where you get, like, you know, your Half Plenty. This is where you get the Iyanla soundtrack. I forgot the name of that. I think it's, like, In the Meantime or something like that when it's Right Back Where I Started. But if you ever really listen to Faith, she has a lot of good, underrated soundtrack cuts. And this is, like, kind of like the start of that.
Yeah, for sure.
And Brandy, and I'm sorry, not Brandy, but Faith is very accessible. I think that because of her relationship with a very famous rapper, we've never really got to know who Faith really was. But in the next 20 years, we got to see like, oh, she was with Exhale too. Yeah. She deserved to be on the soundtrack just like everybody else. Like she's with Stevie J. Like she's a girl that has been on the same trail of tears as everybody else, and the trail ain't ending.
Yeah, definitely it's not.
Because love will be waiting at home.
Yeah, I love this song. I love Love Will Be Waiting at Home. It was on this soundtrack. It was also on the Two Can Play That Game soundtrack.
It was, say it again.
Love Will Be Waiting at Home was also on the Two Can Play That Game soundtrack. It was playing at the very end when she
I didn't know
got
that.
back with.
Was it?
Oh boy,
I love that movie.
Yeah.
Was it?
Think about it.
And I still don't remember.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Things that make
I thought that was
came out a couple of years after this, right?
They
A long time.
Like a long time after. I was
that was
like
the
2000s.
Damn.
I was called grown.
So let's talk about for
I
real.
was 10
For real.
and to the play that game. I was an adult baby. I remember that.
Yeah, this song kept them, gave them a couple coins for a little while.
Well, I mean, they didn't get no coins because Babyface wrote it and produced.
I mean, hopefully they got some
Yeah,
performance.
I didn't want
Some
to tell them the business
performance.
aspect.
Right.
Hopefully they can do it at a karaoke that I go to this week.
But yeah, so the thing about this song is, I'm not sure. Well, maybe Gloria, but there aren't very many women in the movie who would have been singing this song during the course. Well, maybe Robin too, in a different way.
Or how about this? Let's bring up the invisible women throughout the movie, the wives of the men.
Yeah,
that were
right. Because Love would have had to be waiting at home because they won't never at home.
And, I mean,
said,
but they kept on also going back to those
my daughter got
relationships.
chickenpox. Okay, cool. Hey,
But why are we not considering that Babyface wrote songs for men? Like as much as there weren't.
No,
this
we
talked about
it.
This is not a movie that only women watch, and what I mean by that is like probably women who were dating in 1995 may have gone. It's all black cast. These women were gorgeous. These were not like nobodies, and there has to be a male perspective, not just to being the writer, producer, director of the movie, but just like saying like, okay, how would a male feel in this situation?
Yeah.
But you know what? I would kind of take that back to, and I don't remember this particular A Different World episode, but I remember there was in A Different World episode where they talked about waiting to exhale, and it was mind blown. Okay, I was sick one day. This is what you get with antibiotics. But there was a particular episode where Dorian, who I swear is Russell Wilson, I don't care what y'all say, but he went up there and said, because they were doing like a book talk, and it was Whitley, it was Freddie, it was like all of the younger, like Jada Pinkett, like all those characters around that time. And then Dorian came in there and he said, I think this was a mirror. I didn't like what I see. And then, like, he just, of course, he was trying to get with Lena. But I think that kind of shows, like, the cultural impact of this on our conversation.
But even Martin mentioned.
Yeah, you know what? I was trying to remember that. Like, it was,
how women go and talk to each other on the phone and creating this girl culture.
And I think that shows the power of, like, you know, Terry McMillan, or even in terms of just this movie, period, like, how it bled onto other forms, other mediums. Like, everyone was talking about, like, you know, make sure, like, brothers, if you take your woman to see this movie, don't leave your car with her, like something like that, like, you know, those kind of jokes. So
but it also made men step up, just the same way that sidebar as Beyonce's Single Ladies made it created more black marriages in 1 year than happened in the last 10. Is that these kind of songs make you rethink about, like, what man am I with? It really puts guys on notice of, like, oh, am I this character? Am I this trope? Am I this stereotype?
Yeah.
But then also, black folk had like a self-reflection at this time in the 90s, because this was around like the Million Man March. Like, it was like all these other kind of stuff.
It wasn't
like,
around. It was.
Yeah, well, it was. Well, it was. But that was
got men marching.
So,
you exhale and they start.
But that's interesting though, because just to contextualize that point for a second, because you're thinking about, as I think all of y'all pretty much said, this was like the first time you saw like black womanhood and like blackness and womanhood intersect, like in this very like big cultural like
in
event,
a good looking way.
So that was the first time that happened for black women, black girls. That was November of 1995. The Million Man March happened October 1995.
When Exhale was shot in 94.
Yeah.
So like it was already.
But timing is everything, right? Because if the movie was already done, it could have been released anytime during 95. You know, but you think about, like, there's almost this like combination of, in one sense of the word, not full, but liberation for black people, like black people.
And I want to take it back to the
years
track for a little while, because, you know, like, I think Love Will Be Waiting at Home could very much be a song for a man or a woman. You know, I think there's something very real about, and like we said, there are male and woman characters in this movie that at some point in time could have been singing or could have been thinking about, you know, like Love Will Be Waiting at Home. I mean, I'm sure, you know, like Gloria's man, like, felt that way at one point, you know, when he was sitting in the house just kind of working on things, waiting for Gloria to stop by, you know, like, I think that there's something universal, and it's kind of, because we're getting to the end of the soundtrack and like kind of like the altar call songs, if you will. So like the songs to kind of wrap things up, summarize, you know, just kind of bring it all together. So it's just like, so it's just
and Love Will Be Waiting at Home is excessively long. I do remember listening to it as a 10-year-old and saying like, this song they keep on going. It was a skip tracker because it was like, you didn't have 6-minute songs that
I went to lunch at that time. Like around that time,
like,
I went to
or
lunch.
5-minute night. Yeah, 6-minute song, 5:59. And I'm looking at it. It was like these songs were excessively long on Level We Wait at Home because it was a good song.
Was kind of long too.
Well,
so the next one didn't know how to end. And that's the issue. Not even that. She didn't know how to
Let
just
go.
wrap it up.
Wanted to know how.
And so she kept repeating. It's almost like the last full minute of the song is literally just the same ad lib over and over again. Don't get me wrong, I think, and we talked about this, the lyrics cut straight to it.
Yeah.
I do like that. It's almost like a how did you get here, or I'm sorry, we can't be friends kind of deal. How their lyrics are just super descriptive of what actually happened. There's no euphemisms, there's no symbolism.
It's just
it. I called your sister, she, you know,
and your own sister told me.
Exactly.
It's a news reporting.
Oh, for
way
sure.
Of singing, like I'm describing it to you live from the
in chronological
I
order.
think that's the beauty of black lyricism. Like, the beauty of black lyricism is that we are always able to pinpoint, like, you know, exactly what we're going through. Like, if you read Nikki Giovanni, Sonia Sanchez, like, we're always able to take it there.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I think that that's the reality, and I think that that's black art forms, right? Like, because how the world has been set up to where white people don't innately have to, know about our history, our culture, our lives, but we always have to know their history, right? I think that white people have always used like black art as the window to peek into for black life, and so it's like a, thinking about, we've talked a lot about the spirit in which this project was done, and that cultural impact and the impact on just like personal feelings, things like that. It's interesting that people can still create such amazing art out of like having all these expectations put on them, and like the constant weight of like, this has to mean something because it's black people. This had to mean something because it's black women leading not only a big album but a big movie.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think this is the most honest track on it.
Exactly. I was gonna say, taking it back to the music, like that's what we have to do in our story, in our songs, almost, is tell a story so people know what it is that we're going through. And I think that's exactly what was able to happen in this song.
But I think that's
if we write our stories. See, the thing that is, when we look at this writer thing, that's every time I look down at it, that's remarkable, is like seeing that baby face. You just don't see that anymore. And when people aren't telling the story that needs to be told, they're not telling their story at all. You put the power in the hands of sensationalistic writers. I'm sure that Babyface doesn't know how it feels to grab a man by his back and exhale and feel like that rub-a-dub-a-dub. But I'm sure he knows as a male how it feels to do that to a woman and like have that kind of perspective and insight as a man writing how a woman potentially could feel.
Yeah.
But I think that also kind of goes back to Babyface being a scholar of his craft.
Yeah.
If you know the history, like, okay, I guarantee you, if Babyface was sitting right here right now, he would understand, like, us talking about blues women.
But
like
he doesn't date black women, and I think that's
I mean,
and he still knows the history, like as a black man. Like,
so I mean, a part of it is, I think a part of that whole piece though is thinking about people who do their work. Because if I'm a man that has done my work, I can't tell a woman, I can't tell or say that I'm giving a woman's whole narrative, but if I am tasked and responsible for like recounting the narrative of a black woman, if I've done my work, I should be able to do that in a way that honors that.
Exactly.
And if that means calling
I was gonna say I'm gonna include women in the narrative.
Exactly. And which is why
this is why you're here right now. And it's like if you're gonna honor women, include them in the conversation.
Absolutely. Just because like even with this whole soundtrack, yes, all the songs were written and produced by Babyface, but he called Whitney Houston into the process.
Exactly.
Like, I can't do this.
Yeah, but there's something to be said about the fact that he called Whitney Houston into the process, but that's a hidden fact. Mm-hmm. So the difference is that he could have featured some of the people whose stories he stole from to write these songs as co-writers on it, because quite frankly they are. These are co-writers of, these women have been co-writers of these songs. So he heard somebody talk about what it's like to not cry anymore. He heard some, you know what I'm saying? So to some degree, there was a way that Babyface did not have to center himself in all of the album. And that's kind of my issue here, is that Babyface, while a genius and a scholar of his craft, to your point, centered himself throughout this whole goddamn album. And there was a way.
He never featured himself on this album. And I will say, during this time in 1995, there was a very famous book that no one reads now. It's called The Battle of the Sexes. Men are from Venus. Men are from Mars. Women are from Venus and women are from Mars. Whatever the case may be. And you constantly had this kind of battle of the sexes thing. When you have a black man doing something, writing songs for women. And I don't understand how being a feminist, being a woman, or being a womanist excludes the very sex that you want to be with away from your movement. Babyface writing the songs, never singing on them, never featuring on them, but just writing them, being like, I'm supporting y'all vocals, I'm gonna be there to support you. I think that has a bigger musical message than this whole idea of like, oh, all women had to write all these songs because we feminists. But let's be very clear. Unless you don't want a man, you want a man. I mean, like, I don't know how to say it. Like, unless you don't want what you want, you do want to be with who you want to be around, and like to see a really a unity. This man married every woman he had a song with, like, not in a real way, spiritual marriage. That he created meaning and messages with these women that dictated but told their experiences. And I think that sometimes when women get in our woman mode, we exclude men and figure out ways that we didn't need them. But he did write all those songs, and we do all feel them. And if we didn't even know that he wrote them, we would still say, I'm not your lover and your secretary working every day of the week. We would still feel that message.
Yeah, but I do think there's something to be said about where you got the story from. Some of these stories aren't stories men can tell.
So
and I feel
why can't they
who do you
tell?
all think that if he was
I don't
watching
think
the
this is
movie,
their
if he was
lived
inspired, who do
experience.
you think that Babyface was inspired by when he did How Could You Call a Baby?
Well, I don't know if you have an X and Y chromosome. I think that guys have like what, 2 X's? They don't have like the
No,
female.
that's women.
There's
Women
women
have
and
2
everything.
X's.
No. So there's
a-
always an X chromosome. So like men have X and Y, and then women have 2 X's because
There we go.
women birth men.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So like this kind of, when we are subjugating certain parts of ourselves. I came from a man and a woman. I'm gonna grab things from my dad. I'm gonna grab things from my mother and my brothers and my sisters. But no way would we say, where did he get it from? He got it from life. Like, you came from 2
Oh
different
no, I
people.
meant which character did he have in mind when he wrote How
Well,
Could
you better
Call
be
a Baby?
clarifying.
Well, I don't know.
Because I want to know that
baby
Babyface.
conversation.
But I think that men can
Bring
write.
it back to the
but
music.
I'm bringing it back to the music. I
Yeah.
think that men can write songs for women. I think that I don't want to get into a conversation of where I think that we may be teetering on the line of like where Babyface got his messaging from. This a man born from a man and a woman. You should be able to speak. Not speak for you.
can't
but
speak
Speak
for a woman.
intelligently.
I didn't say speak
about
for,
it.
but he's not speaking for a woman. He's speaking to women. And I don't think that anyone thinks that he's speaking for women.
Well, that's
I
debatable.
mean, that's
but
definitely a burner.
but
He's speaking to women.
yeah, I think so too,
for 'em.
Bernie. But here's the thing: we don't know. Babyface ain't here. Kenneth ain't here. He ain't present.
Babyface.
What I do know is that
Oh,
when we
you know
when
he
we
wrote-
run this down, Kenneth's name is on everything, right?
Right.
For better or
He
for
wrote
worse, he wrote it. That's cool.
But that's like for
That lived
for-
experiences.
yeah.
There's a way in allyship that you can do the work and you can bring people with you. I don't know if he did that or did not through this album, but it does look interesting that all of these tracks are written and produced by Babyface. To that end, how could you call her
It's like a
baby?
masterpiece.
How could you call her baby? I think could also beyond it being a Bernie song, it also could be a Robin song. When Robin finally
Yeah,
confronts
so,
Leon
yeah.
and she
Yeah.
starts talking like I'm kind
I
of
wouldn't
this
even
total
say Leon,
package
I would say
girl.
Michael.
Like, well, yeah, Michael
too.
But
Yeah.
if every man in Robin's life to some degree, she's like, why don't you see me?
But you know what?
Why don't you see me? Even in Troy, even with Troy.
But you know, I would say the beauty of Robin's character is even though you see all this kind of stuff, that scene where she's on the beach with Whitney Houston, or she's in there, it's
At the
kind of
pool.
like it makes it make sense. So it makes it make sense when she talks about like, okay, well, there was the story of this woman who came to this town
Yeah.
to chase this guy, and then you know she got pregnant, then she got the abortion. So for me, that kind of contextualized the idea of why Robin is the way that she is, because it was this idea of okay, you've experienced that was like kind of your, I hate to say ground zero of the trauma, and then it's like okay, how you started treating men like you know Michael, Troy, and like all the other kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know how that fit in there, but.
All right, so
Let's move on to the
yeah,
last
to the
track.
last track. 'Cause we can
Yeah,
debate, and
this
there's a
is-
couple of
yeah.
things.
This is the best
I just
track
wanna
to end with,
close
'cause
out. Count on me.
Yeah.
And this is where you also bring in like not gospel necessarily in the sound of the song, but it's gospel because CeCe Winans at this point is
At that
When
point,
you
synonymous
say-
with
when you
gospel.
say
But
the
that
gospel
was
singer
very
too.
much. But I mean,
There's two
as,
gospel singers singing gospel
as someone
music.
who knows 90s gospel varied from like this is what 90s gospel was sound
Yes.
like.
Right,
This was the
exactly.
sound
Absolutely.
like,
BB
this
could have
very
easily been on this.
And this, I mean, I'm sure. Well, I remember this being on the inspirational stations. This
Yeah,
is-
oh yeah.
That's
You
right.
know, so it had that
This
crossover.
was being on
crossover.
Oprah of
Yeah.
like.
This is
Exactly.
like a Catholic school song.
So
They love
yeah,
this.
exactly. So it's like it's very much
They
a religious,
did.
and
And it was
I
done in
think you
slow
were taking
motion.
it. I think
They
you
were
were
like
taking
just
it.
rocking.
Right, like
I think you were taking it back to the point of when you were saying earlier. I think I said something about an altar call moment. I think what you were
Yes.
bringing back to was the fact that this very much is that. You know,
Absolutely.
Like, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, because it's the inspirational song of the album, right?
Yeah.
It's the spiritual song in the album. It's that count on me. This isn't just, two people speaking to one another. This is also a relationship between creator and, being, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, count on me, anytime, don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Like, please believe me when I say you can count on me. And so, you really have this, it's a very spiritual song. And I think that the beautiful thing about this too is that, and it was called out in a think piece I was reading earlier today that was from NPR, but just saying how so much of the narrative around like black women, like often devolves into this competition or cattiness or thinking that black women can't work together to get along, but you like have this song that
and
also. Right, that's a very much so like egos had to be set aside. Egos had to be set aside to get the movie filmed.
Yeah.
You really want to think about it. So like you have this space where you see like black women like leaning and pushing and pulling one another to be their best self. And it's celebrated in a big platform that you don't really get to see that often.
And it's interesting, so to that point is just like, so you think about the first track, the very first track, and that's Exhale, shoot, and the lyric in there, when you have friends to wish you well, you find the point where you excel, right? So it's essentially, it has the same message that Count on Me has,
for sure.
And so I think that the way that, and the phrase we've been using is bookending, I think that the message of it is just that, and that's the message of the movie, and that's like the message of all of it. I think that this whole reliance on each other, like if we're not going to have the men in our lives, if we're not going to have our children, if we're not going to have anything like that, like we're going to have to rely on each other to get through this. And,
even with them, like
Yeah.
even with the
Yeah.
kids, and even with the husbands and all of that.
Exactly.
It talks about the value of friendship, and I think sometimes when folks get married or get partnered or whatever, we tend to forget how important our platonic relationships are.
That was definitely
Just like
a failure,
our
I think,
romantic.
of our parents' generation.
Oh, for
I
sure.
think coming from, unfortunately, a family of divorce, I've seen several times, like either my parents or my aunties or uncles looking around when everything was said and done, like, oh, I don't really have any of my friends anymore because I wasn't doing that when I was married, or I didn't bring myself to my partner. And, I think there's something significant. The lesson that I've tried to learn from that is maintaining those relationships, those friendships, those platonic, emotional connections, whether you're in a relationship or outside of a relationship, because one person isn't going to be able to satisfy you wholly, there are different pieces of each person's soul that you meet. I think that creates like what your soulmate is. And so I think that very much, like even whether, Bernie was going to end up with her man, whether Gloria was going to end up with her man, whatever was going to happen with Savannah and Robin, like it's a song that's a commitment. It's a covenant with each other, essentially.
And I hope that it's a letter too between mothers and their daughters. So we talk a lot about the women having sons in this movies, and we don't talk a little bit about the fact that Bernie had a daughter. You know what I mean? We briefly brought it up a couple minutes ago, but quite frankly, I think that song is hopefully, I wish it had been more of a bridge between older women and younger women. Because this whole track list tells us that everybody goes through, regardless of age. And I was hoping that this was the bridge. I don't know that I've experienced the bridge much in my life between older women and myself around talking about struggle. It just hasn't happened for me yet. I still hold out hope. But I think this song is so much bigger than like peer to peer, in that at the end of the day, no matter what, we've got some shared experience, and I want you to be able to call me.
I will say, like, when I look at Count on Me, I look at it as like, like the end of the movie kind of left you with a cliffhanger, where like you didn't know if those girls were gonna be friends, if they had these squad goals, were gonna be tight. But Count on Me is like that. Regardless of whatever happens, this is what you can count on. This is your foundation. And piggybacking on what you said about this, like bridging the gap of generation, I think that like I've to a certain extent overbridged the gap thanks to When Exhale, of talking to people who are older than me and having friends who were like clearly not in my generation that are still generally my good friends. Like, and I would never deny that. And I can count on them and they can count on me. And I think the movie allowed on a certain level for you to be able to whether you were wanting to or not wanting to, be able to try to have those difficult conversations with bigger generations.
Yeah.
Ashton, did you have?
I totally forgot it. Yeah, I know we don't count on me. But what makes it kind of ironic for me is because this was actually one of the original titles of my dissertation, so I'm kind of like having post-traumatic stress. But nonetheless, no, but I think but how I'm okay.
It's okay. You here?
You made it.
The color is red. Like that's the color. But I think what's so important for Count on Me, especially just considering. Again, the theme of sisterhood throughout the throughout the Waiting to Exhale, soundtrack, movie, book, that's just essentially what Count on Me brings. And I think it was very important to close it with that. Like, okay, despite everything that we go through, despite everything that that happens to us, you can still count on each other. And I think that's an important message in all of that.
I do, and I think just like how I would want to close out talking about the track listing and think about the songs and stuff. What I think I recognize in Waiting to Excel is women being on a journey to become better for themselves and for their friends. You know what I mean? Like that. Yeah, we have family obligations. Yeah, we all want these successful, beautiful relationships. But we're working on each other to become better for one another. And I think that's just a good message. It's a good... It feels good at the end, so. But with that being said.
Hold on, I came back. So,
you guys are better than that. I was like, let's wait on it.
But I would say, in terms of that, I just remember being at the Power Rising conference down in New Orleans, and one of the things that they spoke about was, when is the last time you've had a hug from your sister? Not necessarily a hug from a man, not necessarily a hug from your partner, but your sister. You don't even have to really tell her what's going on, but you just have to say, but you're just speaking through a hug. And I think that's what embodied Count on Me for me was, when is the last time you had some kind of intimacy that wasn't attached to sex, that wasn't attached to romance, anything like that. And I was just like, oh Lord, yeah, that was my thought. All right, I'm done.
Let's switch. Yeah. Do you want to?
Yeah, I was thinking of going there.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So just to kind of wrap this up, because we're talking about, and we kind of had this conversation earlier, but we're talking about just the strength of the womanhood connection and the album, and the fact that there were so many black women on the album, and kind of how Waiting to Excel, both the movie and the soundtrack, kind of acted as a time capsule for that point in time. So for today in 2019, what would a Waiting to Excel, if you will, movie look like? I guess if you were casting or just the storyline, and then who would you have on the soundtrack?
That's interesting. So you said who to cast in the movie and who would you have on the soundtrack?
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe give
I don't think our Ex Helen is the same as 1995 Ex Helen, and I think that
So you don't think it could be made?
No, I think that the way that they dealt with Ex Helen, and the way that I would see myself as being an ex-hellable situation, ain't with Bernie, Savannah. Even though I can relate to them, I don't want none of what they were looking for, and I think that's a conversation that we don't have with the generations I respect their struggle, but I don't want what I'm not looking for nobody's married man. There's things
But you know what? I think that kind of goes back to the point. If you even look within the movie itself, there is a breakdown of generational conversation between between the mom and Savannah,
and even the mother was from a generation of the blues that we talked about.
Yeah, the blues
you just
women,
take it.
You just take it.
Not gonna cry.
But you know what?
I
would even say with certain blues women. I'm thinking of a specific book.
And take his money too.
Right, but I was gonna say thinking of a specific book from Angela Davis where she analyzes Bessie Smith, where she analyzes Ma Rainey and Billie Holiday. There was kind of this dichotomy in a sense of, okay, you can either take his money or get on out of Dodge, or you can stay with him and deal with it. And it's always this kind of teetering.
Yeah. But there's also the struggle with the voices of our movement nowadays are the most articulate voices are from, hate to say it, are from women that don't like men. I mean, in the sense that they're not sexually attracted to men. They don't date men. They don't want to be around a man. And so it's very difficult for me to listen to your messaging when I know at the end of the day you're going home with a girl. And that's a different kind of thing that's a different kind of situation versus like someone who you're like, okay, we're looking for similar or the same type of things versus someone who, you know, I mean.
I think from relationships now, I think that there's, one, generationally, there's less of a push towards marriage. There are some in maybe more conservative spaces, but I think most of us are fine with being 30 plus and single, or, you know, like 30 plus and still trying to figure it out. Yeah, well, I mean, just in the sense of, well,
a lot of people are on drugs.
Sure.
There was no drug use in When Exhale. These were women who had to deal with the reality. I mean, besides smoking cigarettes, but they weren't on Percocets. They weren't the same way that we socially acceptable. Accept people being medicated to deal with their life. Like if someone had a hard day and you were like, I'm about to go get high, there would be nothing that would say, oh, I'm mad at you for saying that you're a crackhead. You're like, girl, you go ahead, do what you gotta do.
But I think you know, that's part of it too, but just the stakes are different. You know, like we're not talking about, when I say fine with not being married, like you're not saying let me just find the next man that I can find and get a ring on my finger. Like I don't think that is the attitude and sentiment of most people in our generation. And I think for generations before that was the thing. And so it's just
up their Troy game.
And, and so I just think it's a situation where, you know, it might look like, I think exhaling in this generation, to answer your question, looks more like maybe more the Savannah route of like being all right by yourself, or, you know, but I think that, to your point, there are still people that want to be in relationships, that want to be with, you know, so, but I mean, maybe differently, just like happy with their significant other or something like that. So
what I would say though, because I know your original question was about like casting, who would you cast now, what the soundtrack would look like. I think that it's sort of like Boomerang, right? Which we just saw like now in this 2019 context. The characters look different. But the characters are gonna look different. Like you know, how they're going about life is gonna look different because now there's one, like we're able to be more open and more diverse in our representations of Black people. Because back then, this is the first movie that's a major motion picture with a female, all Black female primary cast. So the stakes on that are high. So we can't give y'all real. We gotta give y'all 95 realness. You know what I mean? So that's these women that are working, that, you know, their biggest vice is smoking cigarettes, sleeping with somebody else's husband, and drinking a little bit. You know what I I mean? So you can't give that. I'm sorry, I know you have a thought, but this is like to transition to what my response would be. When I think about a movie like this, in order to bring it contemporary, like the characters there will have to be either a continuation story, or the characters are gonna have to significantly, not necessarily significantly change. It's gonna feel like a significant change, but it's going to be maybe just a couple of more identity markers that they didn't include in this movie. Like, cause I don't necessarily think that these women weren't smoking J's, or, you know what I'm saying, not doing other stuff, or weren't sexually fluid, but they just couldn't represent all of that in this film.
But now so now my question would be, if you consider something like She's Gotta Have It. So if you consider like, okay, now in the, you know, 1989 or 86. I think it's 86, 87. 86, 87 context versus the 2019 context. I actually think it's kind of funny to watch, you know, She's Gotta Have It in terms of what we talked about in the 80s versus what we talk about, like, you know, right now. Because it seems like, you know, to me, Spike Lee is kind of on this, I wouldn't necessarily say mocking, so to speak, but when he talks about, like, you know, being pansexual and like what that means to millennials and like that kind of thing, I think that in our looking at Waiting to Exhale or like any or like Girlfriends or anything like that. Like it's just very different of how we see black women's relationships, how we want to portray blackness in a sense. It's just like very very different. But
yeah. So I mean, maybe there aren't any actors or actresses that we would pick for the movie, but it sounds like we have a pretty good idea thematically of what it would look like.
Yeah.
I think that we could pick some actresses for the movie.
Yeah. So we're working on 2 hours though, so we might want to wrap it up.
Don't worry about it. We ain't picking nobody.
But I was gonna say, but what we can do is four of us, and there's 4 main characters. So we could just literally just go around and each
pick a character for one character.
Yeah. So who would be your 2019 Robin?
Ooh.
I'm just going down the order. So Robin, Gloria, Bernadette.
Oh, now my shirt's on the spot.
Okay.
All right, y'all.
My 2013 Robin. 2019.
Jesus.
It was 2013 when Lauren Leonard was still popping. I would still say that like it has to still be a girl that is not so hip and so new, not Summer Walker young, but a little bit.
We
older.
know her face.
We know her face enough to say like we trust that she's been through something. Because these were women who have all we trusted been through something.
That was a good one, actually. I wouldn't have even put Lauren London in the conversation.
I would throw Amber Riley.
For Gloria?
Yes.
Ooh.
I would throw Amber Riley as Gloria. Just, the personality wise, just in considering Glee and like those kind of things. Like, Jordan Woods.
But that's a good one.
You call yourself a friend?
Yeah.
So, okay, I got Bernadine. Yeah, pressure. So, cause the struggle I'm having is like Lauren London and Amber Riley are sort in like the same age group, so I have to think of someone that can play Bernadine that's in the age group. Because remember, these women are like
around
30,
right?
At least.
But you know what? I think that's the beauty of it, because if you consider us like now in this context, like I do have friends that are separated. I do have friends that are divorced. I do have friends that are
the
like
single
whatever.
lady marriages.
Yeah, like I do.
Falling apart.
I mean, I do have friends that are like that. It's just like wow, like
because I'm like, who
has
the chops to pull it off?
Right.
I'm thinking, do you have somebody for Savannah already?
No.
So you're gonna leave me. So okay.
Think about you. I would think Taraji could do it, like for Bernadine.
I don't think so, because Taraji low-key had an audition when she did Acrimony, and it wasn't that great.
Wasn't. Yeah, I will say that. No, I don't think that she's the greatest actor, but I think that like for the generation, she could sell Bernadine. She could smoke a cigarette and burn it up.
Now, here's the thing about it, because Taraji is a great actress. She's a great actress, for sure. So she probably
maybe if she had Forrest Whitaker instead of Tyler Perry, she would have been able to.
Yeah, you have to have a director that can direct and not like
Ava,
because she about to give life in this.
I would have Ava. I would have Ava
because Ava.
But
what about this?
Ava and maybe Issa. I would have them.
Yeah, I was gonna say and I was thinking that Issa would be. Well, let me say this, because maybe not for this movie that we set up, but no, I think Issa is absolutely the Savannah of Insecure, But I think that for me, if I was gonna choose a Savannah, oh my God, I just had it.
Come on, get it back.
So I think that I'm thinking of someone who might be able to like provide on the soundtrack as well. Essentially, who would be the Whitney of now to be able to like.
That's why I said Amber Riley.
Yeah, but
they can narrate the music in the
film. Exactly. So it's like.
Yeah, who has the singing?
Yeah. Right.
There's not a lot of singers and actors anymore because the singers actors they never did exist. They're never really that good. Yeah. I don't know other than LL Cool J who does lifetime worthy acting.
Deepest blues.
I don't know. I'm thinking of two people that kind of come to mind are what is it? Aja Naomi King. So
I was thinking about my girl Michaela. Yeah, I was breaking up her.
Yeah, and then also who else? Oh my God,
that would be
and then
Brian Destiny.
No. Isn't she like 20?
No.
Well, her and Aja and Naomi King look like they about the same age.
But Naomi King carries herself like a grown woman.
Yes, she do.
And Ryan
But I
Nesbitt
think that we
does
need
not.
people who are
Period.
20 plus.
But she's fine.
Not I just got
But she's
into
on
20. Not
Star.
people born in
And
96.
Aja is on How to Get Away with Murder.
Yeah.
That's apples and oranges, sweetheart.
There is. But Star isn't a comedy either. You know what I mean? They're both like dramas.
No, I'm just saying quality wise.
You know who could I
But I think
Gabrielle
that,
Union.
I think that,
Like if you chose
I
that
think
generation of
yeah.
women and
That's
said
right.
like Gabrielle
she
Union,
would be-
Nia
she could do Savannah.
She can do Savannah well too. And then
Very
who
much
else was
well.
I thinking about?
Savannah is an old name.
So I mean maybe not, but a person that came to mind was, and I can't remember the actress's name, but Janelle from Dear White People.
I like that one. I like that one.
The best friend, essentially.
Oh.
The
This is on the TV show or on the movie?
The TV show.
Oh yeah, her name's like.
I think anybody from that show could
Ashley
be in
Blair,
One
I
Excel.
think.
Yeah.
Right,
She went to
exactly.
Howard.
Yeah.
So,
That I
yeah.
do know. Okay.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is she just so?
Ashley's no.
Okay. Off camera conversation. But no, but yeah. So even with that, I think if you do bring like Gabrielle Union to the picture, I think it shifts like some of the other picks.
Yeah.
Cause I think Gabrielle Union and Taraji could be in the same cast.
Yeah.
Why haven't they been in the same cast? That's
I'm not sure. But yeah, so
But
music wise, what is this looking like?
Oh yeah.
Music wise,
I mean, if we're just talking about, the black women of the time capsule, I think we're looking at, you're gonna have a few hers, you're gonna have a few Ella Mays, you're gonna have a Beyonce track.
I don't think you'll have. Okay.
Ella May can get on there because TLC got on there.
And for real,
That's fair, okay.
exactly.
Well, I'm gonna say
She's better.
I had a very visceral reaction to that.
No.
If you take Ella May's best.
I think honestly, SZA might have to get a track.
She definitely does. And
Yeah.
this generation created the copycat generation. It's almost like when
I want Rihanna to get a track.
when I was a kid growing up, I never really thought I could do anything great because all great things have been done by everybody older than me. Like Martin Luther King already did it. Everybody, Rosa Parks had already got off the bus. All everybody else had done.
That.
And so I think that like musicians are having that kind of reaction to where they're not feeling they can create anything that is and of themselves.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of copycatism going on. Like I'm the next Patti LaBelle. I'm gonna be the next somebody else. And so like when we kind of figure out who can do what these people did, I don't want it. I don't want another Way to Exhale. I want them to breathe. Like we're done with this. We're now stuck with a generation of people who are now looking up there like we did. We looked at our little ancestors and was like, oh, you guys are so great. I ain't gotta do nothing. Y'all did it all. And there's a gap between doing.
Yeah.
So,
No, I think Amber Riley would be another person that would be.
Yes, I would say Amber Riley.
Fantasia
can scream on anybody's soundtrack. J HUD. Might as well do everybody.
But you know what?
A Destiny's Child reunion.
I would actually throw
TLC's
in
mistakes.
Sid the Kid.
Okay. Ooh.
If we're thinking about if we're thinking about our generation, like what kind of
What's she gonna sing about that I'm gonna play? Because I think that there's a part of like there's a part of like. But you know what? But she ain't waiting to exhale for me.
But wait a minute.
But
hold on. I would honestly say one of the things that I think was missing was Michelle and Candrello.
Yeah.
But you know what? That's where
I take Melody Fiona. I think there is a Waiting to Exhale soundtrack that's already happened. Like Melody Fiona, when she her first one. Oh yeah. That was Waiting to Exhale. It kills. That was channeling all the energy. I love it.
But I mean, I think that the reality of it is just like we were talking about before. I think that. I mean, any of these women could have been sexually fluid or something like that, and we all latched onto these. So I think that, like, I think that today, but that's not how they presented themselves. But I think in 2019, because we know so much more about our artists, and if you're not gonna be able to create a film that's about black women and relationships and things like that if you don't have like the intersections of like sexual identity and expression, and you're gonna have like one that's gender fluid. I mean, not gender fluid, but sexually fluid. You're gonna have one that's more traditional.
Why not gender fluid as well?
But if that happened in the original Way Next, I think that we need to have that actual conversation. Like we will say like what's new is so in. Or not, I wouldn't call it even new. But like, if 1995, if they put a gender fluid woman in the movie, you wouldn't be talking about it in 2019.
No, we're not saying that. What we're saying is, in order to have
that show up
right
now,
if we were
that's
doing
why it
it
won't
for
happen now.
artists'
That's
time.
why women, because we can't get together on the same page.
Yeah.
Your issues are not my issues, and as long as you divide the whole and say like, oh, your issue is that you're gender fluid. No, we're women, or we're not. And if we're going to figure out on the basic level that we're not, that's the bigger issue.
Then I think one of the good things about a piece like this, then, because it did center Black women in their relationships to one another, is that if you have a Waiting to Exhale in 2019, it can serve as a conversation starter, a dialogue, sisters talking to sisters about why are we not, like, we had this beautiful display of friendship on screen 23 years ago, and we know that the way that sisters get ahead is by supporting other sisters. So how can we, what are we letting get in the way of that? I think that could be something great to explore in a Waiting to Exhale.
Waiting to explore.
Exactly. But I mean, just to kind of wrap up, I think that, unfortunately, great things like this are things that we kind of have to look back to. You know, it would be great to have something like this right now that would kind of define the way that Black women are discussing and talking with each other, both musically and through film today. But thankfully, we have Waiting to Excel. And the soundtrack, and we can talk about the music and the dialogue for years to come.
Right.
20
and
plus.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's the thing about it too, right? Is that this album is just now reaching an age to where people can look back at it and hold it in high regard and not feel silly doing it. You know what I mean? It's like when like a modern masterpiece comes out and it's like you want to rant and rave about how great it is, but then you also don't want to look stupid because it really hasn't held up against the test of time yet. You know what I mean? So in that regard, I think that with Waiting to Excel being on the cusp of, 25 years in 2020, like, I think that it's something about how anniversaries and markers of time, how that influences what happens in the current. So I think that we're going to continue to see women like really take hold of different industries and in ways that maybe they weren't thought to be capable of. And by women, I mean Black women. Because I do think that we are at the point of a Black woman renaissance. Just in terms of like conversations you're having about who runs music, who's in the political landscape right now, who, like, the fact that we, you know what I mean, like, in for better or for worse, like, for individuals, but you have some of the most compelling visuals of our time coming from women, and Black women. So it's like, I think that it's very interesting how time works and how art helps influence time. So
we want to thank our guests for being here. A fun episode.
It's a lot easier for us to rein it back in when it's the two of us. But it's fun, and I think that we covered a lot of ground that needed to be covered.
For sure. So as always, write us a note at gmail.com. And we will look forward to seeing you all in the next episode.
Yes, please write us and let us know what you thought about this episode.
Right, exactly.
For sure.
All right, see you guys.
Peace.